Well, I have to apologise for the shabby starting time of this programme, but welcome everyone to another exciting edition of the Magic Sandwich Show. It wouldn't be the Magic Sandwich Show if we didn't have technical problems, and the problems we had this time were that I was trying to get things up and running on Vaughan TV, and XSplit simply wasn't broadcasting. And basically crashed every time I started on Vaughan. So we're going to have to do this, although I don't like doing it, we're going to have to do this on YouTube. Now, I hope that people can see. Welcome. Oh, actually, let's go back to scene one. You see, this is one of the things I really hate about doing it onto YouTube as opposed to doing it onto Vaughan TV, because I think this is the best part. Oh, it's actually not that bad. Not that bad, actually. I was going to say about a 90-second delay, but we seem to be sort of like only about 10 seconds behind, which isn't so bad. So let's see how we get on. I'm not going to be able to see comments, so if anyone does see comments on YouTube, then do let me know.
We have live comments on we have live chat on YouTube, so there are comments possible.
We do. Oh well, things have changed since I last did it. Anyway, let's start off in the traditional way. Welcome everyone to another exciting edition of the Magic Sandwich Show, number 121, if such figures are to be believed. And it is, of course, a huge pleasure to welcome long-time contributor hogtiechamp and two recent people that we've picked up along the way, Ryan and therumpus. Welcome everyone. How are we all doing?
Well, much better than I did 2 weeks ago. I had flu and temperature 39. You could barely speak without coughing, so I'm much better.
And can we just check that everyone can be heard? We can be heard on YouTube. We're coming through.
Yeah,
okay?
I can hear.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Now, first question for you all. I had it on the screen for you to look at. Let me just put that up for you. This is obviously we're going to have some interesting conversations about very interesting matters. But as ever, we start off with a quiz. This is something I just had on the screen for people to look at on Vaughan, but obviously they couldn't look at it on Vaughan. I'll give you a couple of minutes to have a look at that and then come up with an answer for me.
Jack. Okay.
Okay. I think you've had enough time. So, what do you think the answer is? A, B, or C? What are people in the audience thinking? And I know there's a bit of a lag, so we'll give them a few moments to catch up. What do you reckon to this? Can you see what I'm seeing? You can see that?
Yeah, Jack, George, and Anne.
Yes.
So I have seen. Yes.
So Jack is looking at Anne, but Anne is looking at George. Jack is married, but George is not. Is a married person looking at an unmarried person? Yes, no, or cannot be determined.
Married person looking at an unmarried person. My inclination is C, but I'm wondering, are these the only three people in the universe of discourse?
Yes.
Oh, well, then oh, crap.
Right.
Someone's saying surely it's a trick question. No, it's not a trick question. There is an answer to it.
I'll bet it's something to do with the homosexual marriage or something.
Nope.
This is just a logic problem, I think.
Yeah. Assuming that a marriage is two people.
We're coming on to the topical quiz in a moment, but I came across this by chance this week, and I have to say I got the answer wrong.
Okay, Jack is
looking at Anne, but Anne is looking at George. Jack is married, but George is not. Is a married person looking at an unmarried person? And you're only concentrating on these three people.
There are four.
Yeah, if there are a couple of
there's a lot of people,
standard assumptions you have to
there's a lot of people in the chat who are going for A.
I have to say C. On here, I'm not seeing anywhere where it says Anne's marital status.
Right, it doesn't.
Well, you can
we don't,
infer
we
it,
don't
yeah.
know. But therein lies the answer to the conundrum. There are two possibilities. Either Anne is married or she is not married. If Anne is married, then a married person, Anne, is looking at an unmarried person, George. If Anne is not married, then Jack is looking at an unmarried person. So the answer, well done everyone. Someone put a C in the chat. Everyone who gave themselves an A, give yourselves a point.
Yeah, and sorry, it actually doesn't matter if it doesn't even matter if these are the only three people in the universe of discourse. Jack could be married to someone not George or Anne. It doesn't matter.
I have to say, Hogtie, I'm not entirely comfortable with that answer because I think that you went for C. So
Yeah,
this
I think he did.
this fudging
No.
about.
No, I went for A immediately. Well, yeah, no, it's definitely A. There's no. Not a
It
doubt.
is definitely A. Apparently, and this is why I congratulate the audience. Apparently, 80% of people who are asked that question go for C. So, congratulations to our wonderfully intelligent audience. Now, shall we get on with the rest of the quiz? Let's see. I don't know which one we're going for. Oh yes. Now, I've not looked at the answers to these. I've got two, but let's start with this one before we get on to, as I say, more interesting topics. So, first question. Actress and lifestyle blogger Gwyneth Paltrow this week revealed she'd been doing what in the name of healthy living? Is it dancing under a full moon, being stung by a bee, or bathing in volcanic mud?
Avoiding vaccinations. No, I shouldn't say that. Is Gwyneth Paltrow one of those?
I don't think she is.
No,
I hope not. Don't let me accidentally start that rumor.
I've got no idea. Let's see what the a lot of people are going for bees and
B is the one that.
Yeah, I'm going to go for that because it just sounds the craziest. But we've got a C, we've got a couple of C's from the audience. We've got more C's. A lot of people are going for C. I mean, that to me would be the obvious one.
Yeah, the classic one is the volcanic mud one, isn't it? But the sort of nutty one is the bee.
I think we can. Well, I don't know. I would certainly dismiss A out of hand. B and C. I mean, volcanic mud. I think people have been doing that for a while. I don't know. What are we going to go for?
I'll go for the B.
Everyone's going
Same
for B.
here.
Well, no, a lot of people are going for C. Let's find out what the answer is. If I can find my mouse. Oh, this is another problem I had. There we go. An hour or so ago, I had to restart my computer because my mouse stopped working. So we're going for being stung by a bee.
What did Ozzy get?
There we go. Whoever said B,
Me.
give yourself a point.
Brilliant.
What does this say? The Shakespeare in Love star told the New York Times that she'd allowed herself to be stung after reading that apitherapy, as it's called, was used to get rid of inflammation and scarring. She added, "But man, it's painful."
What did Hogtie go for?
I went for A just to be different, and it's a bit of a goofy answer. I regretted it immediately. But the bee thing. I don't know if people have heard of this epitherapy thing. It's not good. And it's been around for a long time. Since the 70s, I remember people talking about getting stung by bees as a way of curing arthritis, inflammatory arthritis. It's not smart, and it's certainly not free from pain. I don't know how many people have been stung by bees, or worse yet, wasps. It's a remarkable pain experience.
Yeah, I remember there was a BBC evening programme about 20 years ago when some mad old woman used to offer the bee stinging service to people, and claiming all sorts of marvellous things for curing, I think, arthritis and various other obscure diseases. And eventually she was sued, and no, that's right. No, she would sue anybody who claimed that her stuff didn't work. So she was incredibly litigious. So people didn't actually, no one was ever frightened of claiming that it didn't work. And she was a hideous old crone. Yes. Horrendous. It's been going on about 30 years.
If people fall into this, I wonder if there's any way to actually convince people to pay to be slapped in the face with a fish.
I'm sure people probably do pay for that sort of thing, but it's a family show, so let's not go there. Okay, next question. Panama Papers. This week saw the publication of a massive amount of secret data leaked from a law firm in Panama, revealing how rich and powerful figures around the world hide their wealth. Which German newspaper obtained the data? And I'm not even going to try and pronounce them.
Die Welt.
Zeitung, I think, is news. Die Welt is the...
Süddeutsche Zeitung, Die Welt, and Handelsblatt. Close enough.
I've got a feeling that I think that the first one is the equivalent to the is it the Sunday Times? I don't know. Die Welt, I'm not sure what that is. The something, is it the World? I don't know. And I think that is completely made up. So if I was going to go for anything, I would go for A. Oh, and all of the audience seem to be going for A. No, someone's gone for B. No, it's the South German Times.
I'm going to go for C, just to be different.
Yeah, Southern Deutsch Times. Yeah, South German. Yeah, okay, not Sunday. Sunday is Sonntag. I don't know. What are you going for, gentlemen?
I'm going for C, just to be different.
C.
I'm heading A.
C. Yeah, I'll go for C.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going for yes. It's A. Well done, audience. Now, just as a follow-up question, in this country, I don't know whether you're familiar. David Cameron, our Prime Minister, has come in for criticism as a result of this, because his father had one of these offshore accounts, which he may or may not have benefited from, depending on which statement which statement of the four he's made this last week. Which Prime Minister has actually resigned as a result?
Is that a new quiz? Is that
It's
Icelandic one.
It's just
The
a second
Icelandic
question.
one.
Yep, Iceland. Whether Cameron is going to resign or not, who knows? But
and apparently 10% of the population turned up outside the Icelandic Parliament, or wherever it is the Prime Minister is, and banged together various things and demanded he resign. And he temporarily resigned for 2 days, and then didn't call it resignation, but temporarily vacated the post, and then eventually did resign.
AKA he took a vacation.
Yeah, that's something like that.
And there will be elections in a few months' time, but yes. Okay, so well done everyone that said A. Let's have a look at the next question. The US state of Florida has repealed a 19th century law forbidding what? Collecting seaweed at night, games involving catching an oiled pig, unmarried couples living together. Wow. Now, we can't say this isn't biased against the American audience. I have absolutely no idea. B obviously seems to be a little bit obscure and unlikely. C, I don't think there's an issue with that. So I'd probably go for A on this one. But
I'm thinking A.
The audience seems to be split between C and A.
No,
So-
just going by American laws, I've got to go with C. My guess is just a ancient law that never got repealed until now.
What's hog tie? Hang on.
Yeah, I kind of want to. They're going completely up, and it's Florida, so yeah. You want to apply rationality to their legislative process? I want to go with C. I'm going to regret it, but
Yeah, you can regret it. I'm sure.
You know what? I just to be different, and because it's just so wacky, I'm going to go for B. So let's find out. No, I was wrong. It is, in fact, C.
Oh, right. Okay.
So well done, everyone that said that. And what was this? If prosecuted, offenders faced 60 days in jail and a $500 fine. $500 in the 19th century is a lot of money. Anyway, let's question.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at this.
Gotta love those religious Puritans you guys sent over here, right?
We didn't.
Yeah,
we didn't.
we
Send
couldn't
them.
put up with them.
No, we didn't send them. They came voluntarily.
Yeah, but they weren't very happy here, so we were annoying them.
Although it is funny. Sorry, just looking at the BBC article on this, and I noticed the last line of it was the original law, that is the law that prohibits unmarried couples from living together. The original law did not apply to same-sex couples.
Complete inversion, right?
It was announced this week that a new hotel is to be opened in tribute to which infamous movie on the site where it was filmed? Psycho, Blair Witch Project, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What's the audience saying to this one?
It's got to be A, hasn't it?
My gut reaction was immediately A.
Yeah.
The Blair Witch Project was filmed all over the place, so I didn't.
Yeah,
think it
in a
could be
wood.
that. Yeah, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I suppose it
The
could
hut,
be that.
wasn't it?
I've never seen the film, but I would certainly be going for A on this one, and the audience is definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not
A is the only one.
Not universally. Someone's going for Texas. So, what are we going for, gentlemen? Quick.
A.
A. Everyone going for A?
A.
Let's find out. We're all wrong. And well done to the person in the audience that said Texas. That is indeed the answer. And you can read what it says. Businessman and movie fan Roy Rose is hoping to recreate the look of the 1974 horror film in the small town of Bastrop in Texas. I have to say, I've never seen it.
No, I've never seen it either.
Yeah, I've seen 10 minutes of it, and I couldn't bear to watch any more of it because it was so badly done. And so I just got bollocks to this. I'm not, even though I know it's a classic sort of culty horror thing that's supposed to have caused. I mean, it was one of the causes in Britain of the what's it called, video nasties. And I think it was David Lloyd or something. Our British tennis player was number 3, I think. He got up to number 3 or 4 or 5 in the world. No, it might be just top 20. And he married. What was that?
Chris Lloyd.
Chris Lloyd, that's right. Yeah, Chris Everton. And I think as he's watching, one of the reasons she claimed to divorce him was because he liked watching video nasties. And given he was a sort of nice-looking, pleasant sort of English chap, we were all rather shocked by it. And this may have been one of the films that caused that divorce.
The Rumpus, you are a wonderful source of extraordinary information. I don't know whether to congratulate you or
Yeah,
or
I'm a bit worried now. I'm not sure that's such a good thing.
Next question.
And I've learned so nasties refers to a film style.
Yeah, video nasties.
Okay, that word means something totally different here. But it's a family show, so let's press on.
Yes, let's press on. What was outlawed in France this week? Paying for sex, smoking in a public place, not speaking French in court. I think I know what the answer to this one is.
Got to be C, hasn't
I
it?
do. I actually know the answer to this, so I'm going to let you guys lock in your answer.
Don't give your answer just yet.
Because they had a smoke in public place law about 5 years ago, but everybody ignored it. So I don't think it can be that one.
The audience tends to be going for a choice between A or C, slightly in favour of A. So, seeing as I think I know the answer to this one, and Ryan does. So, Hogtie and Rumpus, what answer would you go for?
I went for C, for not speaking French in court.
I'm going for B.
Okay. And I think Ryan and I are probably going to go for A, aren't we?
That is correct.
Yep, we're going to go for A. Offenders will face a €1,500 fine. France is copying the model of Sweden, Norway and Iceland, where similar laws were introduced as a way of cracking down on prostitution while decriminalising sex workers. Well done, everyone who said A. Well, it kind of is.
Wait, They're doing what now? They're making it illegal, like to
Pay for
exchange.
sex.
To pay for
Yeah,
sex.
so-
Yeah.
So this is the payer. So it's the person paying is now being prosecuted. I know this is a Swedish model, but
I get it. Okay, I see. Yeah.
it's just ridiculous. I mean,
But it's still legal to receive money for sex.
yes, exactly. So they're making the prostitutes. They're making it illegal to be paying for the person who wishes to pay for the sex, but the person receiving the money or offering the sex is not. It's a way of. Yeah, it seems insane.
Yes, this is just another example of the matriarchy's grasp on society.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and in any event, I'm not sure whether it would have any effect if it's introduced in this country, because I always pay my prostitutes with crack cocaine. So, does
to
that
the
count as
value
paying?
to the value. Well, if it's to the value of whatever they're charging, then yeah.
Next question. It's a family show. Which organisation released a smartphone app this week only to see it taken down 2 days later? Ku Klux Klan, the Taliban, or the Church of Satan? I've got no idea on this, but I don't know. You see, what happens, I tend to have BBC Radio 4 playing as I fall asleep, and it just plays through the night, and then I wake up the next morning, and I sort of hear, apparently for the first time, the news stories, and I think, hang on, I already heard that, I knew about that. So I think it's there's something minimal that sort of has entered my mind. I think I know what the answer is, but I'm in no way confident.
That is a tricky one.
Answers. Let's see
Church
what
of Satan, I'll go for.
Oh, the audience. The
I'm going
audience
C.
is totally split on this, I think.
The Church of Satan in the U.S. has been kind of playing it up once in a while, so I'm going to go with them too.
Oh, good.
That's what I was going to go for. The Church of Satan.
Sheeple.
So, anyone taking a different answer?
Hogtie hasn't offered one, I don't think.
No, I did. I was first to say Church of Satan. Yeah,
okay.
KKK is not as technologically and web savvy as you'd expect.
So let's have a look with the audience. Yeah. Not the Church of Satan. It was the Taliban.
No. Really? Well, they're recruiting, I guess, but the Church of Satan has sort of really been pushing social media, so I'm surprised we can get apps on phones. That was my thinking there. But what's the Taliban doing? I mean, is it sort of recruiting? I guess what would the app do? That's
released on. Well, just reading it. Excuse me. It was released on Google Play Store. Included statements and videos from the Afghanistan-based Islamic fundamentalist group. After Google removed the app, a Taliban spokesman claimed its disappearance was down to technical issues. No more about it than that. Next question. I think this is the last question. Okay. A new statute of the writer George Orwell is planned for the headquarters of which organisation? Amnesty International, the British Library, or the BBC? What's the audience saying? I thought this is something I have no idea about.
I can imagine the BBC.
I would imagine it would be, but there again, it could be it could well be the British Library.
Yeah,
I don't see why it would be Amnesty International. I don't know. Let's have a look. A lot of the audience are going for B. One person's going for C.
I mean, the BBC wouldn't necessarily be very keen on spending money on statues, I suspect. So
yeah, I'm going to go for B.
I'm going to go for the BBC.
Well, the only thing is, I would say the Amnesty International is pretty big on getting rid or exposing the idea of covert dictators and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, 1984, obviously, with all the oppression that is on sort of the authoritarian state. I mean, that is the opposite, exactly the thing that Amnesty International was fighting against. So you could argue that's a reason. And if they've got a bit of cash to spare with the donations, then perhaps I think that's worth. I mean, I suppose you couldn't really think of many other people who would possibly personify the fight against oppression than George Orwell. I suppose 1984 and all that really is the ultimate sort of fighting against an oppressive society. So you could really justify, and he used to work for the BBC at one point, you see, as well. That's why I was going for that.
So whilst you took yourself around all of the answers, which one are you actually going to end up going for?
Sod it, I'll go for Amnesty International now.
Same
I'll
here.
myself into Amnesty International.
Okay, I think you've argued your case very incredibly well. I'm in three minds. I'm going to say the British Library. No, it's the BBC.
Oh, bugger.
Yeah, I wish I'd have known you worked at the BBC. That makes sense.
Yeah, but they don't really put up statues very much. That was the only thing I was against that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. All right, let's move on with. Right. So we, what did we score? I think we scored 3 out of 7. So we're down and outs. But the audience, I'm sure, did very well. Okay.
I might have gotten 1 right, maybe 1.
I got 3, I think.
Okay, and anyone in the audience got better than 3? Craig, was it you, Craig, who did really well last time?
Yeah, I think it was Craig, wasn't it? He did well last time.
Yeah, only 3 out of 8 this time, but someone, Sebastian, 5 out of 7. Well done, Sebastian. You whooped our asses. But one last news story before. No, actually 2, because one of them is really funny. Let me just bring it up. Where's it gone? Oh, yes. Let's see if hopefully this image will crop up. Can anyone tell me why, or what is the news story behind this image? And we'll just give it yeah, there it is on YouTube. I'm sorry, Quantum Overlord. Only got 2. To be honest, I think I probably would have only got 2. But anyway, anyone any ideas about the story behind this picture?
It's not cultural appropriation, is it?
Not entirely, but kind of. You'll notice that there are actually 2 sets of photographs there. The one on the left. The majority of the people
white,
are
black,
are
and the
black.
whites are sort of culturally appropriating their styles or something.
No, I can't give you that.
Okay.
Something probably racist, Quantum is saying. Well, this is actually the question that was sort of like being asked. I don't. Well, Hogtie has just
Something
Hogtie
fuzzy hair.
thrown his towel into the ring. Oh no, he is back. No, Rumpus, you're very
Wrinkly
close.
hair.
It's something about hair. Yes, it is something about hair.
Is it about the story where the black lady attacked the college student for appropriating hairstyle because he had dreadlocks?
Yeah, that's what he said. The cultural appropriation thing.
No, it's not that. It's
okay.
I'd be amazed unless you know it. And I'm just checking in the chat whether anyone has got it. I don't think they have. This is what happens if you do a Google search, and this is why I'll kind of give Rumpus half a point for this, because it is in relation to hair. If you search for unprofessional haircuts in Google, the images on the left hand side are what you get, but if you look for professional hairstyles, the images on the right are what you're going to come up with. So allegations are made that Google searches are inherently racist, although I don't know how, and this is mentioned in the article, I don't know how you actually have an algorithm that makes Google searches racist. I'm sure it's possible.
We'll have the people on the left prosecuted their hairdresser or something, because that's what there have been cases where you get these hairdos and these women get all upset because of course their whole life been when a woman's hair is obviously traumatized, they're traumatized, and so they then tend to there have been cases of prosecuting your hairdresser. Certainly women do. So the people on the right presumably are happy with their hair, and the people on the left presumably not.
No, that wasn't the basis of the story, and you don't get any extra marks for that. I'm sorry. Okay,
and sorry, this is a new story. This isn't you, DPR, doing searches. You went to Google one day and went professional hairstyles.
No,
unprofessional
this is let me go back to it, and I can scroll up and down. This actually comes from the Guardian website. Do Google's unprofessional hair results show it is racist? And the story reads, recently an MBA student discovered something alarming. Googling unprofessional hairstyles for work yielded image results mainly of black women with natural hair, whilst searching for professional ones offered pictures of, I don't know how you pronounce that word. Coiffed, yes. White women. And there you have the differences. I haven't actually checked whether it's true, but it is a genuine.
I know. I just feeling out to see how much time you spend on the internet searching for, typing in professional hairstyles, and I don't know what you do with your free time. So
it's a family show, so I won't answer that question. But there we go. Genuine news article. Lost my mouse. One last news item that I want to discuss, and then we'll get on to serious things. Let me just bring this up. Okay, so why has Burger King been in the news this week? Anyone? Somebody's just Hamas. I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm terribly sorry. Just tried it, and it's true. So there we go. I'm not making these things up. And Ryan, if you're typing, that's either cheating.
Sure.
But at least mute your mic. Why's Burger King been in the news this week? No one has any idea. I would play the video, but I can't because as soon as I do so,
either something racist or there's something wrong with the burger. The beef in the burgers is somehow contaminated.
Oh, if only I could take points away from you, Rumpus. You're way off the mark. But as I say, I would play the video, but it's simply an invitation to DMCA takedown notices, and my personal channel, DPR Jones, has lost about 50% of its videos over the last couple of months. So people are getting very keen on serving DMCA notices. So I won't play the video, but anyone in the chat have any idea? No? Paul has got as close. I think, Paul, you deserve a couple of extra marks for that. Someone called in and told them that the kitchen was going to explode. Yeah, it kind of is that. Let me just scroll up. So we get the. Let's scroll up. Oh, it won't let me scroll up. I don't know. I can't scroll up any further. But the headline is Burger King staff tricked into smashing outlets' windows to release pressure. And the story is a prank caller has tricked workers at Minnesota Burger King into smashing the windows of a restaurant to keep it from exploding, mirroring similar deceptions at Burger King's and other fast food restaurants in other states in recent months. And this is what I think is just so funny about this story. It was not like it was the first time that happened. Basically, someone phones up a Burger King store and says that they're from the fire department, and there's a build-up of gas or something, and the only way in which they can save their customers and themselves is to smash all their windows. And the video, I'll put it into the link in the description of the video so you can watch it. It shows these people, the staff going around kicking all the windows in, and it's been recorded. But the odd thing is, it's not the first time it's happened. This is like at least the third time it's happened to Burger King. Now, you'd think that Burger King was sufficiently sort of like nuanced or noused up that it would sort of like give out a message to all its people and say, look, if you get someone phoning in saying that they're from the fire department, don't start smashing the windows. And the cost of them Look at the cost of this, right? Someone placed a similar call in Oklahoma. Damage there was $10,000. Somebody did a similar thing in California about a purported gas leak in February, amounting to $35,000 in damages. There we go.
Hogtie, I am with your local gas company. There's a leak in your building, but what I need you to do to make sure you're safe is to put soiled underwear on your head over your nose to keep from breathing in the fumes.
Well, the thing that I find weird about this is what calling and saying, "Oh, it's the fire department." I don't know what it's like in the States. Here, the fire department still makes house calls.
Explain.
The fire department makes house calls.
How would they? Yeah, if they think there's a gas leak, they're going to. I'm sorry.
They'll show up. They don't just phone you. Yeah.
Yeah. And how could they possibly know? Oh, this is a fire department. We've detected a buildup of, and one of the things was carbon monoxide, which of course will kill you, but it's not something that's going to explode. There was another one that was, I think the latest one was a buildup of pressure. A buildup of pressure. I mean, what on earth? Anyway, enough of news. Let's crack on. Rumpus, you were, and in fact you sent me a link. I don't have it up on screen, but I don't think that is going to cause a problem. You wanted to talk about a particular show. I know that you did as well. Hogtie, will come on to yours. You wanted to talk about infinities. Go ahead. Okay, your cold has got so bad that you've lost your voice, or you are unable to unmute yourself. Oh, that's a shame, because it was. I thought it was going to be a really interesting conversation, but the rumpus isn't there. He's obviously stepped away. I'll tell you what we'll do, Hogtie.
I'm back.
Okay.
Sorry.
He's running with his pants around his ankles. I'm here.
Yeah, I had someone else accosted me on something. And yeah, sorry about that. Yes, infinities. Yes. I must admit, I did mean to revise on this for this thing, but unfortunately, I've been at an Oxford Literary Festival all week, and I haven't had a chance to get up on it. And I've had flu for the last 2 weeks, and so although I know when to talk about this, yes, it's basically the discovery of this Hilbert's Hotel model using. I could get the news story up where they've. People may not be this because of this idea that real infinities don't exist. That William Lane Craig is dead against the existence of real infinities, and it's one of his principles for. I'm not quite sure what it is, but he really objects to it, and presumably some part of his reasoning to allow for God, and I think Aristotle, for instance, was dead against real infinities. I mean, although he accepted
the argument that I hear William Lane Craig use relates to Hilbert's Hotel, and like you, I don't understand how this argument supports in any way his belief.
I can help with that.
Yes, I was going to invite you to do so, but he uses it as an argument for infinite regress and how that either is or is not possible, and this is one of his sort of like 7 arguments that he uses for the existence of the Christian God. So let's before we go into the criticism of it, perhaps Hogtie could explain exactly what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah, and I'll limit my comments to the specific issue of how he thinks it helps his particular apologetic. So remember, this need not be connected with any actual notions of infinity, how it's used by mathematicians in the literature. This is just William Lane Craig making the bucks. So what he's arguing against is any sort of potential for someone to say, well, how do you know the universe didn't always exist? So it's a direct objection to the notion that the universe always existed. He plays upon people's misunderstanding of what it would mean to say that it always existed, because to say that the universe always existed is to say that there exists no point in time where the universe didn't exist. So for example, there was a warm summer day in the summer of 1946 where I didn't exist, right? So the fact you can point to a particular point in time where I didn't exist makes it false, the claim that I have always existed. And of course, when it comes to the universe, a person could say, well, has the universe always existed? Well, tell you what, you go ahead and you point to a moment in time when the universe didn't exist. Go ahead and wrap your brain around that. Regardless, he's playing upon the distinction that he's playing upon people's confusion. To say that the universe always existed means to say the same thing as the universe has existed for an infinite period of time. So how many seconds has the universe existed for? Well, how many years? Well, we say 13.7, whatever. 100 billion years? Or, how many? Well, could it possibly be an infinite number of years, an infinite number of seconds, an immeasurable amount of time because it's truly infinite? And he's saying, no, that's not possible, because that means we would have had to have passed an infinite number of seconds, an infinite measure of time to get to this current point in time. And of course, that's not possible because, let me clear my throat before I deliver the great proof, actual infinities don't exist. The first place I heard that line, actual infinities don't exist, was a video by Venom Fang X many years ago. And I remember saying, well, that's an interesting claim. I would love to hear how he supports that. And that was before I'd come to learn that all he ever did was like watch Kent Hovind videos and then redo them word for word, and then listen to a William Lane Craig argument and redo them word for word. But it really is entrenched in the Christian apologetic community that well, actual infinities don't exist. Of course they don't exist, and without proof provided. But anyway, that's why they think it supports their argument, is because that would render incorrect any statement that the universe has existed for an infinite period of time, which they incorrectly take to mean the universe has always existed.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I can use William Lane Craig to prove that true infinities do exist, because the number of bad arguments he makes is literally infinite.
Yeah. I don't quite understand why William Lane Craig objects to the existence of any sort of infinities. I knew he was objected to the existence of an infinite amount of time, but I don't quite understand why. I mean, I suppose he's allergic to the idea of any sort of infinity existing. But I thought he's obviously his main objection is to an infinitely long universe. But I don't see why, therefore, he can't exalt the existence of an infinite number of other things that are, in terms of space or numbers or material or something. But no, it's time I thought he was allergic to. And of course, there are certain models of the universe which actually do allow for an infinite amount of time, even with the Big Bang, and simply say that the Big Bang happened a certain amount of time ago. But his argument was that you can't have an infinitely long universe, because we know that, for instance, the way that stars evolve, the way the universe evolves, you can therefore say, well, it can't have been around for infinite time because you would have you'd have thermal equilibrium. Everything would become black holes, which would be evaporating. So you know that the universe cannot be infinitely old from his point of view, which is actually valid if the Big Bang, the point where the material turned up in this universe was a very long time ago, then obviously you'd have, with deep time, you would have everything cooled and you would have nothing. So we know, for instance, as I think I mentioned before, that we know we're in a period of time with the expansion of the universe, that we're in a unique position at the moment where we can see the galaxies and we can also see the microwave background radiation, and that's not going to happen in a billion years or so time. We're not going to see, or is it several billion? I can't remember how many billion years it is, but we're not going to be able to see any stars except our own galaxy. So that's obviously going to be quite a traumatic thought. So for instance, if we lose the knowledge now, observation, and we lose our scientific knowledge, and that's not stored anywhere, and our future and another society or a planet, aliens, whatever, come into being in a billion years' time, and they don't have any connection with our information, they will not have the benefit of knowing that the universe is expanding. They'll only be able to see the galaxy, assuming these aliens are in our galaxy. They won't have the cosmic wave background radiation. I don't think you're going to see that at this point because of the expansion. So, but there are other models that that do allow for an infinite universe to exist all the time. But then there's an inflation event, say 13.7 billion years ago. But I still don't understand why William Lane Craig objects to the existence of other sorts of infinities, I mean, Aristotle also objected to them as well. I mean, although he understood, for instance, that you could, he in fact claimed that infinities were finite because he thought you could chop up although he didn't obviously understand about atoms. He understood that you could chop up something indefinitely, although you can't actually, of course, because he believed you could always chop up something indefinitely, keep on dividing it by 2, and you could keep on doing that ad infinitum. And in fact, he thought, therefore, that the things in this world were actually the sum of infinities, and that objects in this world were actually, the atoms and the things you can see around were actually the sum of an infinite number of things you could chop up, which obviously we know with atoms and things there are gluons or what have you and quarks that are there is actually a minimum sort of unit.
I think part of it too is that William Lane Craig just doesn't want any infinities beyond God, and anything else is just messes with his faith a bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, once you've got one infinity, that's obviously a slippery slope. Perhaps he regards it as to having other infinities.
Exactly.
And because, of course, he wants there his fundamental Kalam cosmological argument, which is based upon that 2 statements that anything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe had a cause, and that cause is God.
Right.
So,
he's just. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you can. Okay.
Oh, he's merely trying to provide support for those premises. He's trying to make those premises sound reasonable and make objections to those premises or simple skepticism of those premises render those things unreasonable. And I think it would be a mistake. I mean, it's always nice to be charitable and give someone the benefit of the doubt, but I mean, it should fairly quickly occur to people as a mistake to sort of see what William Lane Craig does in terms of his apologetics, to see that as sincere inquiry or discussion about the nature of the universe and infinities and genuine philosophy. That's just not in his camp. I mean, I know he refers to himself as a professional philosopher, but he doesn't embark in what someone might wish to call professional philosophy. He's an apologist.
Two issues, if I can throw them into the melting pot, so to speak. Firstly, I would disagree with Ryan about him advancing an infinite number of bad ideas. In fact, if you study what William Lane Craig has to say, he actually only has 7 arguments. Depending on how much time he has to speak, he will either use 5 or 7, and I don't think 7 is infinite. But the other point, of course, is that the arguments that he uses to and other Christian apologetics use. Ryan, can you mute yourself if you're not speaking?
Oh,
I've got your
sure.
keyboard. Thanks. The other thing I find somewhat irritating, maybe ironic, I don't know, is that all the arguments they use for the finite nature of the universe, they have absolutely no problem whatsoever in disregarding it when it comes to their God. Their God has always been infinite and always will be, but of course the universe isn't. So what God was doing for infinity before he decided, actually, I know what, why don't I create a universe? What the fuck was he doing for infinity before he came up with that decision? I don't know.
Twiddling his thumbs or something, just sort of having a good time in his non-temporal, atemporal, amaterial world. But of course, the reason this is relevant at the moment is, of course, the initial story that I linked to in the magazine was that there's this been discovered that they've been able to model this Hilbert's Hotel in light, where and if you're familiar with Hilbert's Hotel, the idea is you've got a hotel that's infinitely sized, and so that if some has an infinite number of rooms, and someone can come along and say, well, okay, I would like a room, and the hotel is full, say, with people, and then the management of the hotel said, okay, well, I'll just move everybody up by 1 and make a space for you. And then so any number of individual people who come along can be incorporated just simply by asking everybody to move up by a story in this infinitely high hotel. And then what happens if an infinite number of people turn up? Well, you ask every other person to move up by 1, and then you then then have an infinite number of every other room. Then, so person in room number 1 goes to number 2, person in number 2 goes to number 4, and then you have therefore an infinite number of slots in which all the new infinite numbers of people can fit in. And then you have all sorts of other strange combinations, like you can have an infinite number of buses. Sorry, a finite number of buses turn up with an infinite number of people on each bus, and you can actually model using Cantor's, some method of Cantor. You can demonstrate that all these people can also fit in as well. And there's another example where you have, depending on the level of nesting, and there's some sort of dimensional analysis that means that you can, providing you don't have an infinite number of things with an infinite number of things inside them, so the nesting is not infinite, the Hilbert Hotel can accommodate them. Because, of course, there's also the example that the infinite number of numbers, the number of, for instance, integers, is actually, the infinite number of integers is actually smaller than the number of decimal numbers. So, for instance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is obviously all the integers up to infinity, whatever. But that's actually a smaller number. It's got a different name. I think that's Aleph 0. And there's another infinity of all the possible numbers between 0 and 1 that are fractions, so each, with an infinite number of decimal places after it. And in Cantor showed, I can't remember how it was, about, I think probably just around the 19th century probably, he demonstrated, in fact, that those are two different numbers. The decimal, the fractional numbers are actually greater in size than the integer numbers. And now, apparently, as I say, in this physics, this recent discovery, they've been able to model the Hilbert's Hotel anyway, of fitting in, being able to slot up effectively this Hilbert Hotel, adding an infinite number of things to this to an existing situation. I don't fully understand the paper, unfortunately. I meant to do that before this show so that I could explain it more thoroughly, but unfortunately I've been, as I said, at the literary festival all week and I haven't been able to research it properly.
Well, that's a shabby excuse. I'm going to try as best I can to add someone to the call. Xbox who wants to contribute. It may require me to juggle around with screen captures. I'm not sure. We may get away with it, but hopefully if I press this button, this will work. He wants to contribute to this conversation, and please, if you want to join the call, do send a Skype message to Magic Sandwich Show. Don't just send a friendly invite. Include what you want to talk about, and we'll see if we can add you on. Now, let's hope that pressing this button has some success.
Well, as you do that and you jigger it, I can. The infinity thing puzzles me a little bit too. It's fascinating though. I think your description, Rumpus, of the Hilbert's Hotel thing is really interesting in that it's not just, well, you can add one. You can add an infinite number of people, or a finite number of buses with each bus with an infinite number of people. It's intriguing. Towards the end, you inadvertently referred to, you said something about the number, the tally of the integers.
Yeah,
is a smaller number than the tally of, you referred to decimal numbers. Let's say the rational.
Yes, the
reals.
rational. Yeah, yes, the rational reals. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you said, well, this infinity is a bigger number than this other infinity, and just sort of very, very naturally referred to these things as numbers. And this is a point I find puzzling. There's always this caution that comes with it. Try not to think of infinity as a number, and don't refer to it as a number, because infinity isn't a number. Well, then that only makes me wonder. Then, well, what is a number? Like, how do we decide that a thing is a number versus not a number? But it certainly resists entering calculations, right? It certainly resists entering into algebra. Once you pair infinity with its distant cousin, so there's infinity, and then there's the infinitesimal, which in some places is symbolized as iota, which is confusing because the square root of -1, now in modern times symbolized by j, used to be symbolized by either the lowercase letter I italicized or by the Greek letter iota, and it's just too confusing. But anyway, so the iota is 1 over infinity. It's literally the smallest, tiniest possible imaginable fraction, or even impossible fraction. But it's not 0. It's 1 over the biggest, it's 1 over infinity.
Yeah.
But then the intuition then is that if you had an infinite number of infinitesimals, and you stack them all up, you would get to 1, because 1 over, infinity. Sorry, infinity times 1 over infinity is, I don't know, is it 1 or is it 100 or is it 7? These things are not to be treated as numbers. Was sort of the only caution I would add to that, but to also say I'm not really sure why.
Yeah, I mean, in physics, of course, there are various calculations. For instance, the mass. I don't know if you know that inside the atom, the most of the mass is not actually the quarks inside. Say, for instance, a proton. Most of the mass of the proton is not actually in the quarks inside a proton. It's actually to do with the spontaneous generation of mass of virtual particles between the quarks inside a proton, and this had something desperately relevant to what you were saying just now.
If you've forgotten, allow me to make one observation. Doesn't all of this wonder and mystery just show how wonderful and extraordinary the Creator God was? I think that's an undeniable argument. How can you possibly defend that position, or defend a contrary position?
That's actually what I wanted to ask about on Craig's plan. And I apologize for my avatar. I've just reinstalled Skype, so it's the default avatar on here.
It's a lot better than your usual one.
Looks a lot prettier than the brain in a vat. How does Craig seem to answer this with his God? If we can't have an actual infinite, and God assumably would be an actual infinite, this would lead to things like that. The universe would have to exist alongside God in this infinite. Otherwise, there would never be a point in time that God could decide to create the universe.
Yeah, but what the mistake that you're making there is something that I sort of like touched upon a few moments ago, namely that the rules that he seeks to apply to the universe have absolutely no bearing whatsoever when it comes to his God.
Right.
Oh, okay.
You need to ask him to justify that. But his God, obviously, he would say, I think, by definition, exists outside of the framework of the universe. So the laws of the universe don't apply to him.
Oh, so
And
special pleading.
Of
Okay.
course, it's a him, not a her.
Of course. That makes more sense than the actual infinite. I gotcha.
What, that it's a him, not a her?
Yeah, that it's a him.
There's a lovely bit by George Carlin on YouTube about whether God is a man or a woman, and he makes a very powerful argument that if indeed a God exists, it would have to be a man, because no woman would mess things up in the same way that a male God would have done.
Well, the thing is,
Alright.
if infinite or all powerful, wouldn't that kind of preclude the idea of gender to begin with?
Well, no, we all know
I mean,
that the male gender is more powerful.
I know you're positing this as a question generally, but hey, don't ask me. I'm not the one trying to defend this, what I consider to be absolute nonsense. Ask a theist. I think that all of us over many years have been asking these questions of theists. Have you ever had a coherent answer?
Well, no.
Or a satisfactory answer?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, given that, let me ask you this question to all of you. Given that I think I understand your position in relation to the possibility of the existence of a God or not, Is there any argument that you have heard that has made you think, yeah, that could be right? As a result of that argument, there could be the existence of a God. If not, and if you can't say yes, I've heard a persuasive argument. What would you describe as the best argument that you've heard?
Well, the best argument is one that I've made up myself.
Go on.
Well, it's not even really an argument. It's more of a coincidence. I see a lot of people like to say, something like, if it weren't for religion, we'd be 400 more years advanced as far as technology and all that goes. And then I start to think of the people who ruled throughout Europe and 400 years ago and imagine them with nuclear weapons. And that's the closest thing I've come to a real argument. I'm just kind of like, yeah, King Richard with nukes, that's not going to end well.
Yeah, but
I've got a plenty good one that Hello Kitty is godly. Hello Kitty exists, therefore God exists.
I've not heard that syllogism before, but it's
Hello Kitty is a gift. Hello Kitty is a gift from God. Hello Kitty exists, therefore God exists.
Yeah, it's as persuasive as the Kalam is, isn't it?
I actually stole that from Matt Bell. Matt Bell
really?
has one on that.
Wow.
Except for Hello Kitty isn't there. It's sex. Sex is a gift from God. Sex exists, therefore God.
Wow. Well,
I thought you might want that imagery.
You could replace. I'm not saying it's structurally inaccurate, but you could replace proposition 1 and 2 with pretty much anything you wanted, and still arrive at the same conclusion. So none of us, and if there is anyone out there that thinks that they have a powerful argument for the existence of God, please send me a Skype contact request, and we'll get you on. So, rather than seeing as none of us are persuaded by the good arguments, what do you consider to be the worst argument that you hear for the existence of a God? And I'll, if I may, I'll go first on this one. For me, it is, well, it's written in a book. The Bible says. I couldn't give a about what the Bible says, and if that is their best argument. But normally, when you have this discourse with the theist, they although they will claim some sort of reliance on their good book, ultimately they will rely on, so far as I can see, personal revelation and
revelation.
Sorry, yes, and again, not convinced. So those are the two weakest arguments that I hear. Is there any other apart from relisting William Lane Craig's that really sort of like upset you?
Well, it's not really an argument for the existence of God, just a reason for me to believe in God. Pascal's wager always kind of bugs the crap out of me just because it's a total false dichotomy. I mean, even if I do grant you that, okay, our universe has a creator, there is no evidence that that creator has any powers beyond the ability to create a universe once. All the other attributes that we ascribe to God, being omnipotent or omniscient or caring about us or even being aware of our existence, is complete arbitrary guesswork. As I've said before to a few people, for all we know, our universe could be some other races like D- science project.
Yeah, it seems like all, because I think there's some decent, if tweaked a little, arguments for God, but they're all just mere possibilities. and almost all of them are contingent on if the universe was created.
Yeah.
And I'm not convinced like you. I'm not convinced by any means that the universe was created or is a creation.
Right. I guess if I had to pick the worst one, in my opinion, that's actually an argument for God, I would probably say it's whenever they try and turn it into a logic, step-by-step progression. Premise one, it's possible for God to exist. Well, based on the way you define him, no. If he exists, if it's possible for him to exist, he must exist in some worlds. No. And that's just ridiculous nonsense.
Yeah.
Every
you're in both good company.
Ones.
Yeah,
go ahead.
You're in both good company and bad company, because obviously the non-believers aren't swayed by those sorts of premise conclusion style arguments. But it turns out that the Christians are not swayed by that kind of argument either. Right? They don't. You ask them, okay, so just let's set this aside for the moment. Why don't you tell me your story? Well, their story is always going to be something about how their life was off the rails and they were doing whatever drugs and they wanted to kill themselves, and then they found Jesus, or someone showed them Jesus, actually. But I just the very thought that like somebody was having whatever problems in their lives, or maybe their life was good or something, and then they heard William Lane Craig, clicked on the YouTube video, saw William Lane Craig, and went, premise one, blah blah blah, and then at the end of that video, they just fell to their knees and clasped their hands together and confessed that they're a sinner and repented and begged for Jesus to come into their heart.
You said Jesus. Yeah.
I said Jesus.
I don't know. I personally don't know any on the internet or in real life that have ever come around.
Of all the times that I've made that claim, I've once had a person say, actually, I was convinced through logical argument, and then he went on to describe it. Subjectively, I'll assess that as not.
I have to say though, I'm with Hogtie. I do worship Chuck E. Cheese's.
Jesus.
I think the precept that the Psi 10 variety is the worst argument that I mean, aside from, just the Bible or like you were saying, but the precept gets down to just, I believe this is the case, you should too.
Well, I think that's part of the big problem with a lot of their arguments, is it always starts with the conclusion and works their way back. It's hard whenever you do that in making an argument, you always end up making mistakes. That's not how logic works. You're supposed to start at the beginning and actually work your way to the conclusion.
Well, that's what I was saying in response to Rumpus's point about these recent papers on the nature of infinity. I mean, these are serious questions that are being addressed by serious mathematicians, and I will grant in saying that there are plenty of people in the world, that manage to tie their boots and go to work in the morning and not really worry themselves about what mathematicians worry about. But setting that aside, let's accept that there are people that enrich the world in their own special way through the study of abstract mathematics. And this is a serious issue for them. And it's true that even in abstract mathematics, contrary to popular opinion, there is such a thing as a right and a wrong, right? I mean, it's meaningful to them to talk about things like whether or not the square root of 2 is a rational number, or again, that's right. That's obviously not a new example.
No, that speaks to like the absolute certainty, things like that. I mean, within certain types of mathematics, right? You start with some axiom that's agreed upon. You can have absolute truth and truth. Period. It either works within this paradigm or it doesn't. And I think that goes with any. The same goes with morals. You can say they're moral, right, and wrong, giving a set of parameters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not to say that mathematicians don't have pointless arguments. I think I'm amongst many people who've kind of grown weary of the whole pi versus tau argument every year. That elicited a chuckle from a couple of guys. That was more than I hoped for.
Yeah, I think I think tau has got. There's a good case for tau. I think over pi.
Oh, always two pi's.
I've just learned of this recently. It's the only reason I found it funny.
I've not heard of this. Can someone explain?
No.
Well, when you in all sorts of calculations in physics and real life, you find that 2 pi keeps on turning up, and physics is full of 2 pi, and sometimes we try and subsume it into things like h bar, where h is Planck's constant. We have h over 2 pi, and what the suggestion is that pi isn't actually the fundamental thing. It's actually because because the pi is the relationship between the diameter and the circumference of a circle. What is actually much more useful is actually the ratio of the radius to the circumference of a circle. And if you had that, then in fact the value you'd be using is something called tau, which would be of the value of 2 pi, 2 times pi. So instead of worrying about 3.145159, you'd be worrying about twice that. It would still be an irrational number, but you would then be able to remove half your physics books would then lose a 2. And we always, mathematics, physicists, mathematicians always trying to reduce things, and you have to reduce lots of 2's from everything, including the circumference. So would then become tau times r instead of 2 pi r.
Yeah, so you could just relearn math DPRs when you were taught that the circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. It's a very common formula. Well, instead of saying 2 pi r, you would say tau times r. It's a much more simple formula. Then when you do something like the area of a circle is pi r squared. So we'd have to change that to, oops, pi r squared over 2, which now still has the 2 in it, but now you got to put the line in and change all your freaking typesetting to get the 2 underneath.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a big issue. Yeah, we can survive without it. But yeah, most of the time there are a lot of 2 pi's that will go. Then the area is indeed a problematic one, but other than that, most of the time you get rid of it.
And every year on March 14th, 3/14, right? We always have our 3.14. It's Pi Day, and everybody's excited about pi. And there's a small group of people who I will call nutters that on June 28th celebrate Tau Day.
Yeah, but the real question is tau calculated in the Bible?
It's exactly 6.
Yeah. One thing about I've got to mention the infinity thing, actually. The one infinity thing I love, actually. I don't know if you know, but if you say 0.9 recurring infinitely, that's the same as 1. So that's a fun thing to get to.
This is true, and I will hardline on this position. I'm so glad Rumpus and I agree on this point. Yes. 0.999, repeating 9 is equal to 1. It's not really, really close to 1 or infinitesimal away from 1. It is equal to 1. And this is a point subject to debate, but not a matter for debate as far as I'm concerned. But
yeah. Okay, I disagree with you. Tell me why I'm wrong.
This is why William Lane Craig is right.
Well, subtract one from the other. And what will you be left with? It would go 0.00000000 recurring.
But it would end. It would end in a 1. Ultimately.
Oh no, it wouldn't, because it's infinite. No, it couldn't.
It would end. I love this number that never ends. It would end in a 1. Okay, subtract one of them. That's what the guy said. Subtract one of them from 10 times the other. So your number is 0.9999 recurring 9s. Okay, that's your value. 10 times that would be 9.9999, et cetera, et cetera. So you subtract 1 from 10 times of it. You get exactly 9. Just like when you take 1, and does this actually prove it or not? Yeah, when you take 1, it does prove it, yeah, because when you take 1 by 10.
Yeah, that is one of the proofs, actually, yeah.
Now, I just had to pause and think, well, just because you prove that this property exists for some number, can you then conclude that it's true for this number? But yeah, because you're taking 10 times. Yeah.
This is all coming from the guy who thinks that triangles don't exist.
Yay!
We're still going to schedule that debate.
Yes.
and neither does gravity, apparently. But hey, Hogtie, there was an issue that you wanted to bring up.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, in fact, two issues. You wanted to mention some forthcoming event.
Oh, so yeah, right. So in terms of show agenda, I had messaged you guys about what I thought was an interesting court case, and it turns out actually there have been 3 interesting court cases, filings in court. Not there have been no trials yet, but interesting. So if you were inclined to talk about any of those 3, we can go over those. First, I wanted to mention though, and this is sort of developing in the background here, but one of the other issues that I follow relatively closely is I call it the anti-vax nonsense, but let's call it. And there's a movement now anti-vax, right? Like people who are kind of fed up with, okay, yeah, we all have a right to our opinion, but some of the things that the anti-vax people are saying is dangerous. It leads to dangerous behavior. So there are people out now trying to work to rebut what the anti-vax crowd is saying. We have a lot of fun in this community, rebutting some of the silly things that, oh, look at that creationist said this thing about the moon receding, and therefore the moon would have been whatever. It's that sort of lulzy and lulzy ponage. Pardon me. But the anti-vax stuff is dangerous, and this is a serious issue. Disease, death, etc. But anyway, so a recent one that's come out is the notion that. I may have the details of this wrong. I have to sort of review some of this material before we do the hangout. But it's the idea that meningitis is actually caused by the polio vaccine. Are there people on the panel here? Had you seen this message go around last night this morning?
What a load of bollocks, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, have I got the broad details right? Because I don't want to say a bunch about it now until I've read the material, but is that the right? So it's that. It's not polio is caused by meningitis. It is that it's the polio vaccine that's causing meningitis. Okay. Well, Fiona Robertson.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, I want to make sure I have the broad details right. Is it?
Yeah, because I don't know detail by detail, but it was something that was in the polio vaccine that was known to cause meningitis.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and there's meningitis isn't a disease. Just anything that ends in itis is a description of the symptom. So somebody who has meningitis,
right.
It's not the name of the disease they have. There could be any number of things that would cause it. But the alarming thing is this idea that, we would get rid of this meningitis problem if we just got rid of this darn vaccine. Of course, that's their goal, is to get rid of the vaccines. So it's a bit of an alarming thing. Now, why it's gotten to be of interest lately is that Kent Hovind has produced some material that is supportive of this anti-vax idea, and the danger there is that, I mean, Kent Hovind is one of those guys for evangelical Christians, for a large set, not all of them, but for a large set of evangelical Christians. Kent Hovind could make a video of him just making farting noises with his hand in his armpit for 20 minutes, and there are evangelicals that will buy that DVD, right? So it's when he starts talking about, take these ground up apricot pits to cure your cancer, and don't get vaccines anymore. It is a message that does get some penetration. So anyway, the announcement is, and I think they've settled on a host and a moderator now. So it's going to be Fiona Robertson. This has been discussed in the Google Plus community. So for people that may or may not follow me, I'll certainly post a thing about when this is going to be. But certainly you want to check out Fiona Robertson. Watch her posts, and I think that they want to do it this evening. That is evening in the UK. Probably fairly promptly after the Magic Sandwich Show. You can check my Google Plus feed if you want to know the when and where. But I think that's as far as I know about it. She's agreed to host it, and I think it will be this evening, meaning this afternoon for those of us in Western North America.
I've just found a page relating to this some page about the Well Within website or something claims that all polio in the 1950s was naturally declining, and that all cases of polio since 1970 or 80 or something have been caused by the polio vaccine. I mean, this is the level of idiocy that's going on here.
Yeah.
And I think was also we want to get viruses and bacteria.
Do you want to post links, Hogtie, if you have them, into the chat?
I'll do the live chat outside. I'll do so as I get them, because I think right now that as far as the event setup has gone, as you know, when you go to set up a Google Plus event and a Hangout live on air, step one is to sort of exchange a bunch of messages back and forth, and then later you generate an actual thing they call a Google event. And I think we're in between those two steps where people are discussing when and where and who's going to host. And as soon as I get the Google event posting, then I'll reshare it in the live chat, and I'll send it to you DPR for addition to either the comment section or the video description or whatever.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. And is this a continuation of the one they had yesterday? I think it was.
I don't know. Was there one?
Or maybe
it was
shared. It was shared privately with me. It was live. that maybe this was just the recording of what is fixing to play.
No, it's going to be a new broadcast.
Okay.
Discussing the most recent information that we managed to collect up to this morning. I wasn't aware people had discussed it last night. I mean, that's good because I think we are at the point. I got to agree with the anti-vax crowd that we're at the point now where we need to recognize that in a climate of freedom of speech, I mean, there's no shutting these people up, and I don't think we should either. I think that, it's hard when people have a message that's legitimately dangerous. A person might view that as a reasonable limitation on freedom of speech, but whatever. That's an academic discussion.
Yeah.
The point is that it's out there. Their stuff gets out there. They're not going to be quelled. So what's got to be done is the rational response, right? We need to come out and say, when they make for example, when they say things about how vaccines, they make the claim that vaccines don't have the benefits that Big Pharma says that the vaccines have. And they know this because, well, look, they introduced clean water and then these diseases started going down. Well, that's got to be rebutted with proper graphs and clever memes about how, well, isn't it interesting that clean water was introduced into whatever country in this year, and then 10 years later we saw the rates of this disease go down, and then 35 years later we saw the rates of some other disease go down, and 5 years before, and then isn't it interesting how these diseases tend to always go down after the disease-specific vaccine was introduced, and not really that well timed with when the clean water came in. They have to be rebutted with actual data and with clever, punchy memes, because that's the battlefield in the 21st century.
Yeah, you've got to reach the people on a common level, not just in the details of the science and all that.
I'm sorry, but I don't know how your numbers can refute my single photo that I'm sharing from Arcane Logos. You can't beat that.
Yeah, that's the battlefield for sure.
No, it seems a lot of times a lot of people will ignore the science no matter what the science says or can show if it catches on socially, right?
Right. I mean, it's
that is the fight.
It's funny watching a lot of the liberal anti-vaxxers who sit there. At one moment they'll be all these conservatives are just denying the truth about global warming. They're denying the science. They're ignoring all the information that's easily obtainable and self-evident. And then when it comes to vaccinations, they do the same damn thing.
Yeah, this is all an American thing, of course. I mean, in the UK, we just don't get any of this bollocks because no one we trust authority. Whereas it seems in America, there's at least a contingent of people who obsessed with conspiracies and hating their government who just seem to think that the government is unreliable. Whereas that's just not the case in most sensible countries.
We trust the authority. We just trust the wrong authorities.
Wasn't there recently a measles outbreak in Scotland because of anti-vaccination movements?
It's spreading, yeah.
Yeah, there was one caused by the autism thing some years ago. There, that yes, I think it was a year or so ago. They showed some that as a result of an area that had the parents who were affected, and whether it was 10 years ago by that I forgot his stupid name now, who's actually been prosecuting over in America. Yeah, Wakefield is, and he's been exposed. I think there was some recent revelation actually about him. I remember reading a few months ago something extra appalling he'd done, or the depth of his misdemeanors was increased that much further. And yes, and so in Scotland and around Glasgow, there was an extra outbreak caused by some sort of got round there where they rejected it.
What those cyanide capsule things? What's the vitamin?
Hold on, someone's saying something.
Wow, DPR. That's actually loud. Worse than Ryan's keyboard noise.
That's DPR. Yes, DPR.
Well, wait. How do we? What's the?
We sound like we're crazy. Okay. I see.
Best,
two different.
What's the best method of fighting the court of public opinion on things like that? What methods have we found the best?
This is now spontaneously turned into a segment with no objection from DPR. I mean, if we can we do 10 minutes on anti-vax? I guess it sort of came up organically.
Yes, of course we can.
Okay.
I've got no objection whatsoever.
Okay. So how do we sort of do have an agenda and a schedule, and you were pretty good about our time limit. So, yeah, no, it's worth addressing, especially because it's just an ongoing thing. I do want to encourage a little bit of caution with the words outbreak and epidemic. People might read in whatever online news source or something about epidemic being reported for certain geographical area, usually a capitation zone for some health authority, and they then interpret that to mean an outbreak, and the terms are quite a bit different. So an outbreak is usually when there's no disease present, and then patient 0 shows up, and then now the disease starts to spread. So it's a special class of an epidemic. And the reason why that's a concern is that epidemics happen all the time, because the definition of an epidemic is I guess, let's say, the opposite of endemic, right? So in any community, there's always an endemic disease rate. There's always some amount of people with some particular disease rate. That would even include places where this disease isn't even present, right? You say the endemic rate is 0 incidents per 1,000 people per year. So there's always an endemic rate given in incidents. I mean, where an incident, it means a clinical detection. Somebody showed up at a facility with a disease, not they had the disease and nobody knew about it. So there'll be an endemic rate that so many people per 1,000 people or per million people per year will present at a clinic with a particular disease, or we call it a disease incident. An epidemic is when, for a period of time, the clinical incidence jumps to a level that significantly exceeds a well-established endemic rate. It's not part of the normal fluctuations or lability of disease presentation rates, but instead is almost, I would say, qualitatively different. Something clearly different has happened here. The problem we're having with measles and I was trying to remember the name of this disease, whooping cough. Sorry, automatic cat feeders, if you heard that. Or I can make a claim DPR did. The audience can't hear that.
Yeah, DPR.
The audience didn't hear that sound at all. It's not that I don't care about my cats. I just don't want to feed them as much as they want to be fed. I'm opposed to meal feeding cats, but we can do a segment on that later. Sorry, I like meal feeding. I'm opposed to free feeding. I don't like ad lib feeding cats. But anyway, so the epidemic. So what'll happen is you'll have a disease like whooping cough, which in all of the health administration jurisdictions in Canada, it had appeared at such an incredibly low rate. I mean, we didn't want to declare whooping cough just defeated in Canada, because we still have visitors of the country, and sometimes somebody gets it when they travel to another country. So that still would happen once in a while, but for the last 30 years, it's been a really remarkably low rate. And now it has shot up to be dozens of times higher than what the rate has been in years. Well, we're still talking about a few dozen cases across the country where there's, at any point in time, 39 million people that are subject to access the healthcare system. So we have a few dozen cases come up. That is an epidemic. But is it an alarming epidemic? Well, you got to look at the causes of it. But yeah, I mean, I'll make that statement right here on the show here that Canada has now lost control of whooping cough. We kind of had a handle on it in the last few years. We've lost it. So Scotland, the same thing. Scotland is not facing an epidemic. This is true for the entire UK, by the way, and whatever Scotland reported. They're not facing like it's not like the movie, 28 Days Later? It's not the zombie apocalypse. It's that these are jurisdictions that felt they had control over a particular communicable disease and are now admitting to the public that they've lost control of a disease that had previously been vaccine controlled. So hopefully with that explanation, it sort of explains a little more about what these governments are saying when they announce epidemics.
Yeah, I think it's only been localized areas in the UK that have been where the word got around about the MMR became favourable. So it's not covering the UK where we've lost control. It's just a little bit of Glasgow and some little places in England, but it's not been significant, I don't think.
Yeah.
Well, you've lost your grip on measles. That's I mean, we need DPR knows people in that country. Why don't we get a health policy scientist and epidemiologist from the UK to come on the Magic Sandwich Show and to I mean, I haven't looked over the UK data. I've just sort of by headline. And when you look at the Canadian data, and they make these statements. In the introduction section, they'll say, "Oh, this has happened, that's happened." They sort of comment on the state of the world. So I've seen that in introduction statements that yeah, there are other jurisdictions admitting they're losing control. But I mean, take a look at your measles numbers. They're not what they were 10 years ago. And can the UK government, as represented by their health service, can they make the honest claim that you still have some containment over measles? Or if it's the case that measles outbreaks in some community, that they just simply don't have a way to respond to it other than quarantining families and, giving people symptomatic treatment until it goes away? The answer is no, they've lost it. Just one moment, I got to deal with the snap request here. Yes?
Well, a couple years ago, they had a outbreak in Texas. Some religious group decided to avoid vaccinations, and I can't remember exactly. It was like 2 or 3 kids died. A couple, I think another old person. They just basically spread measles about their town. I think 29 people got it. There were 2 or 3 deaths.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about there, and again, that would be an epidemic, not an outbreak, because Texas has never been free of measles, and measles again isn't one disease; it's a collection of diseases, but none of them has ever been eradicated from Texas. And I'm not picking on Texas individually. I just say that because you mentioned it, but there's been no declaration from any American government. With regard to measles, mumps, rubella, that sort of package that we're talking about, where these vaccinations are common. They have made statements declaring the eradication of smallpox within the American borders. I'm trying to remember if they'd made a declaration about polio. I think the government at one point had said polio was eradicated in the States, although there's certainly no claim that it's eradicated worldwide. And the Canadian government said that polio was gone from Canada, which it has been.
Hogtie, can you just help me out here? I think you just said, if I heard you correctly, that measles was not an individual disease. Is that the word you used? But it was a combination of things. Did I mishear you?
Yeah, that's going to be worth looking up just to make sure I've got it the right one here. But because there's actually a few, sort of measles is measles, but then isn't that the one with where there's multiple names?
Hey, I don't know. I thought you were the expert in this field.
Yeah,
I'm not.
I know we get our vaccination is measles, rubella, and mumps.
Yes, but I know that's a vaccination, but I didn't realise that measles was a combination of things.
Yeah.
Rubella is measles, but there's other types of measles. So, for example, German measles, right? So when you hear people alarmed because if pregnant women get exposed to measles, it's teratogenic. It causes these terrible illnesses in the children, or even death of the fetus. German measles, right? So measles is one of those it's a grab bag of like these skin, lung, nasal passage type of infections. So when I say measles isn't one thing, it's sort of like the term jackfish, right? It applies to a lot of different species of fish. Measles refers to several different diseases, including German measles, red measles. Okay, just one sec here. Yeah, I gotta grab that. I'll be right back.
Well, one of the big issues, living in the United States is the whole religious issue. There's religious exemption laws, and some states legally allow parents to use faith healing when treating, easily treatable conditions. I'm not sure everywhere, but I think Idaho still has that on the books. And of course, as soon as that was made possible, numerous children started to die from treatable illnesses, and just because the parents, are doing that. And of course, when you don't treat your kids against a lot of that stuff, it will spread to other kids and they'll get sick. And, it's bad enough that you're using prayer to heal your kids, but you're also risking my children while you're doing it.
But one of the cases I wanted to talk about was a recent filing from Boston about a religious exception to vaccination for a nurse. But before I do that, I'm going to dish out some pickles for this kid.
I've got a story here on the BBC about measles. This is the 11th of March this year, so that's about a month ago. And it says here, doctors are concerned they're witnessing the start of a measles outbreak in London and the southeast. And it says here, Public Health England has detected 20 cases in the region since February, compared with 91 in all of England in the whole of last year. So last year there were 91 cases of measles in the whole of England, which is the vast majority of the UK thing. Most cases were in young adults and needed hospital treatment.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, that would be. Go ahead. Sorry.
So we've got 20 cases in. So from February to March, that would have been, and I'd say 91 in the previous whole of the year. And they do say down here that actually, so far there has been little spread of the infection to school-age children, which suggests there is a high level of protection in those age groups. So, although the title does say measles outbreak feared in London, it does suggest that it's still pretty minor.
Well, it describes an outbreak. Sorry, it says outbreak in the title, and then immediately describes an epidemic, not an outbreak. London has always had measles. And sorry, just to touch on this, as I did go back and look it up, because I hate giving out misinformation. There's rubella and rubeola. There are two different types of measles, just as an example. So again, that's why I say measles is sort of the common name for a collection of different sort of rashy diseases and whatnot. But rubella is the one that's known as German measles.
Yeah, that's right.
And then so the MMR. I'd have to look that up too. What is the MMR? Is it measles, mumps, rubella?
Measles, mumps, rubella. Yeah.
Well, rubella is a type of measles. Is it rubeola or is it?
I think it's rubella.
Yeah.
Yes, rubella.
You think I should know this stuff? Whatever. It's just a bunch of diseases. No, measles is a really intriguing one. I want to if you don't mind, DPR, I want to add another link here. There is a channel named. No, I cannot. You can hear me talking. No. Oh, just wait, Caleb. You can just wait for a couple minutes. Measles. I want to put in a link for a video by a channel. I think it was Kurzgesagt. He recently renamed the channel because people couldn't remember. But he does like these explainer videos. They're adorable little cartoon characters, little birds and squirrels and stuff. Very adorable things. Rumpus, tell me you've seen Kurzgesagt.
Unfortunately, I don't. Oh God.
Oh, let me charm the audience with these wonderful videos. I want to add a link to his whole channel. Just really interesting descriptions with these cutesy little cartoons.
Bring it into the chat and send it to me on Skype, and I'll include it in the description.
Yeah, I think everyone in the audience is just going to love because he covers a variety of topics and very, very, very well researched. Okay, and he does a particular one on measles that when you'd first want to watch the one about what does your immune system do. And you need to remember that your immune system is a collection of cells, like pretty much any other system. And the immune system is subject to infection and to damage from infectious agents. Just one moment, just one. I'm so sorry about it.
That did not sound good. I don't know whether it's more difficult to bring up a child or one of my cats, but that's the sort of sound I hear frequently when my cats are moving around.
Well, it's actually I got two problems here because the other one is Mr. Bingo here is trolling.
Oh, the big cat! I like seeing the big cat.
Here he is. Yeah, so the two of them, and actually it's funny because my son my kids often present during the show. They're very, very ow. When did you start doing that? Very well behaved. For some reason, he's got a plate full of pickles here, but he wants more pickles. You have a plate full of pickles. Eat those pickles. Let me finish talking. I
give him more sugar and see what happens.
Sugar. Yeah, I adore my kids. I'm sometimes amazed at how, sometimes people will say, we take them out in public and they'll say, "Oh, your kids are so polite. Like your daughter just said, please." And I was like, "What? Why is that remarkable?" But anyway, let's not lose track. For some reason, he just, they're at that age. Their behavior isn't uniform, so he's a little. Anyway, measles. So you want to first watch the video on the Kurzgesagt channel that describes what the immune system does, because he breaks down for you what the types of cells are in the immune system. Then go watch the one on measles, And I'm telling you, like, I want everyone in the audience right now, like, sit up, pay attention, because if we had a quiz on which tissues does measles infect, 95% of even well-educated audiences.
Don't give us the answer.
Oh, okay, go.
That's the question. Yeah.
I would say measles affects the skin.
Yeah. Who else? What else?
It's
You'd
good,
say skin?
I know that it's unusual because it happens inside, doesn't it? There's something odd about it. It happens on cells inside. In fact, most of the blisters or whatever they are actually occur inside the body somewhere rather than outside, or something ridiculous. There's something weird about them.
Ryan, you got an answer? I don't know if you were still part of the call or not. When it.
Well, let's also see what the we've got audience members saying
I
nerve cells.
don't know. I would have guessed what DPR said.
Someone says
tissue.
lungs, then liver, brain, then skin, and someone frankly says, I appreciate your honesty, I have no clue. Someone says blood.
Your liver, yeah. Well, that could be the sort of thing. Yeah.
I mean, the manifestations are obviously most obvious on the skin, but
It's the
suspect,
first thing you see.
I suspect that I am totally wrong. So come on.
If the eyes are.
Let's see. Measles can also cause blindness. Someone else is saying, in short, it does not affect bones. Otherwise, it gets finished there. Some glands enlargement, and another one says all the tissues. So that's a bit of a cop out. All the tissues. Come on, Hogtie. What is the answer?
All the tissue. I don't know if it actually affects red blood cells, and technically blood is a tissue. Bone, no. But yeah, pretty much everything else that people said it does. So any basal membrane tissue, if the eyes are the window to the soul, the skin is the billboard for the body. And when you see somebody with measles, you go, ooh, look at that, because it's really a disturbing image. But underlying that is the tissue, is the inflammation, infection, or even lysing, the actual breakdown of cells of tissues that surround the myelination, like surround the fatty nerve cells. So there can be nerve damage. So somebody mentioned the eyes. Rarely does it get inside the eyes, but that's not required because it could affect the tissues on the back, sort of on the other side of the back of the eye.
Of course, shingles, of course, is a consequence, isn't it? Which is a nerve disease.
Which is nerve damage, right? Yeah. I did actually just start my not that this matters, but I just to tell you how it sort of impacts me. My mother had shingles last year or 2 years ago, and it really hit home for me just how shingles is not like, oh, it's unfortunate that person's got shingles. It's debilitating. It's just an awful condition. I've started conversations with the healthcare providers here, tried to learn the policy. Turns out you can't self-refer for a shingles vaccine. There is an effective shingles vaccine now, and I went and asked about it. Turns out you can't self-refer for it. You have to go talk to a physician that can specifically someone licensed to prescribe. So
you can't self-refer for it.
Oh, so self-refer.
Alberta has self-refer.
Yeah, Alberta has a lot of things you can self-refer for. So, for example, if you want to take your kids for a hearing test, you need a referral, but that referral need not come from a physician. It can come from the kid's parent.
Right.
So, and these are things that are paid for. So, there's a lot of this stuff in a lot of places is free. But anyway, no, the virus can infect nerves. It also affects, and here's the one that's missing off these lists that are going through. It also affects the tissues, the cells of the immune system. If I were to ask the other trivia question, why is HIV so bad?
Lymph glands. Of course, T cells on HIV, isn't it? Of course, that's why HIV kills the T cells. Yeah,
again, so there's something that's penetrated. Well, not to say just because Rumpus knows it, that means it's penetrated popular culture, because Rumpus tends to be very, very well informed about a lot of things. But I do think that it has penetrated popular culture. People understand that, I mean, here you have this system in the body that's designed to help you fight infection. But then there's this one particular infection, HIV, that affects the immune system. And you go, oh, that's why it's so bad for those people with HIV. Hey, that's what measles is. Measles impairs your immune system. It impairs your body's ability to actually fight measles. And for months afterwards, impairs your body's ability to fight any other disease. So this is why, and people, it's a childhood disease. Well, yeah, that's because it's a disease you typically get when you're a child, but it's not a kiddie thing, right? Right? Like you have like your little kiddie hammer that's made of plastic, and that's okay. It's not a real hammer.
It's interesting that
this is a real disease that really kills people. Sorry.
That article I read out said that those 40 people who've been caught it since February in the UK, in England, most of them were hospitalised.
Yeah, and of the deaths, if you look at the cause of death, and this is something the anti-vaxxers will pull out when they say, oh, well, there was a big story in the paper about 38 people that died of measles over a 1-year period in some state in the US. Well, did you know that 16 of them actually died of a lung infection, and 14 of them actually died from meningitis? And they'll break the stats down, listing what the actual causes of death were. Okay, well, what happened was you had somebody that had measles in April, was hospitalized at the beginning of May, and then died in June from fluid accumulation in the lung because they weren't able to stop an infection of the lungs. Wow. Right? This is how children die from measles, usually through some other disease, other incredibly painful disease that we would normally be able to control, but runs rampant in people.
And HIV does exactly the same thing, doesn't it? Of course, it causes a whole series of things you can't then resist, various things that we expect the body to be able to fight off.
Right.
I don't want to sound callous here. I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't want to sound callous here. But 40 deaths in the United Kingdom or Scotland.
There wasn't 40 deaths, 40 infections.
Right. Well,
I'll read it again. Public Health has detected 20 cases in the region since February, compared with 91 in all of England in the whole of last year. And most of the cases are adult and needed hospital treatment.
But what are we putting this down to? The lack of vaccination? And I say I don't want to sound
it's minor,
awful
isn't
about
it?
this, but there are more people killed on the roads every day than there are by measles. Are we getting overexcited, over concerned about it?
Well, any preventable death is a preventable death. Maybe I should let other people answer. Well, no, my answer is loaded up. I'm just going to tell you. I take your point. You say, well, no, it's not callous to ask a question about, well, where should our public resources, should we spend millions and millions of dollars or whatever, currency unit, to save a couple lives here and there. Well, look, any preventable death is a preventable death. It always has to be weighed in the context of what the costs are, because if you bankrupt your healthcare system, trying to deal with some obscure disease that very few people really suffer from anyway, then you're actually allowing deaths in other places in that system because you're diverting resources away from those things. Yeah. Great, I get that argument. I mean, part of my career was based on that argument. But the thing is, this is not just some disease that some people get. This is a communicable disease that your government, and I'm talking now specifically about the UK, I can address this more specifically with Canada, but just because you raised the issue about the numbers in the UK, and I want you guys to go back to your government, maybe come back on the show and talk about what you learned from it. But your government had previously reported having control over the measles, and I'm telling you, you're losing control over it, right? So it's 14 this year, or whatever the number Rumpus said it was. But if you lose control of that situation, it goes back to the hundreds.
Well, they did say, as I said at the end of the article, saying that so far there has been little spread of infection to school-aged children, which suggests that there is a high level of protection. So in other words, if there is a problem now, in other words, the problem is getting better. Because I think after the MRI business, the level of vaccination did go up.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's got to do with, and people don't like the term control, but I mean, this is why we have governments. I want to get back to about the point about the Americans and why this is it's not entirely uniquely an American problem, but sure, it's distinctively an American problem. Yeah. And I want to address the point about trusting your government.
Freedom!
You in the UK do have to ask yourself how honest your governmental services when it comes to epidemiology and health policy research. How honest is your government being with you about the control of disease, right? I'm not saying to you that they're not being honest with you. I'm saying that they don't necessarily raise an alarm. They sort of wait for you folks to be panicked and then ask the questions. That's how our government approaches it. I mean, they put up these little circulars on their webpage and they send it out. You can ask your local governments.
Hogtie, I'm not saying that you are incorrect in what you're saying, but can you give some sort of like evidence or substantiate what you're saying?
Well, which part of it about whether your government? Because I don't know about I don't know what it's like being
about whether my government is sort of like has my best interests at heart. We have an organisation here, the National Institute for Clinical Excellence, NICE, and they sort of like determine which sort of like
drugs. They were worried about drugs, and the NHS rely on them to say which drugs were cost effective.
I think they go a little bit further than that, but yes, right. Effectively.
I'd like to know how many people in the US have got measles at the moment. I mean, we say they've got a kind of count of 91 in England last year. I was just wondering what. I mean, so that's obviously I don't know what proportion. I work out what the proportion is of the population. I was wondering if there's a similar number in the US. What they're. I mean, was the MRA business really big over there, and the anti-vaxxers obviously latched onto it? Presumably, did that have a greater effect over there in terms of a reduction in the? I mean, do they have an MMR vaccine anyway?
They do. I thought that's where it was made, actually.
Yeah, we do. Right. We have the MMR vaccine. I had to get mine when I was little. The thing to answer DPR's question from earlier, my big issue with measles and vaccinations in general isn't so much it's a cost benefit analysis, and the ability to which some of these infections can spread very easily, especially if we go through a culture where we stop vaccinating kids against measles. All you need to have is one sick kid in school, and you could have lots of kids dying within a couple weeks. So it's
Yeah, I don't think DPR was saying we shouldn't spend money on the vaccinations. He was just saying the current state situation might not be very important. But obviously, if we didn't have any vaccination for measles, presumably the problem would then become huge.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying. To me, it's more of the potential outgrowth that worries me about anti-vaccination movements and stuff.
So Ryan, what's the position in America? Is it a matter of free choice for the parent to determine whether their child gets the vaccination, or is it obligatory? Is it free? If you're not in some sort of healthcare system, do you have to pay for it, or what?
You usually have to pay for it, but there are plenty of free clinics and stuff that'll provide it for you. If you can,
it's free if you can't afford it. And I have 4 kids, and any of them that have ever been on Medicare or anything, the state will pay for it. But that's only. It's not mandatory. I mean, if you want to go to public school or things like that, you have to have it. It's mandatory. But if you were to homeschool and things like that, it's not mandatory.
Yeah, exactly. It's only mandatory if you're going to have your kid mixing in with other children in large quantities.
All right, well, that's good. So how many cases? Do we know how many cases of measles there have been in the US last year, for instance?
Well, they're going through, according to CDC, they're going through the oscillation now here, where you get a epidemic and then people get more vaccines. But anyway, so I'm going to go from 2010 to 2015. So that's 6 years. The cases are 63, and then 220, and then 55, and then 187, and then 667. For 2015, they're reported. There's no way they finished the tally. They say 189 for 2015, but just looking at the footnotes, there's no way that they have finished the tally yet. You think they would have by now because it's April? But yeah, 667 the year before.
Yeah, so it was 90 in England last year.
Yeah. Now, remember, too, that was also the year, was it 2015, was the year of, then that this would qualify, not just this would be an outbreak. It was the amusement park in California. Was it Disney World, Disneyland, whichever it was? It was a fairly famous news story.
Yeah.
And that was a news story that got turned totally upside down because the anti-vax crowd were reporting things like, well, how many of the kids that got the vaccine, how many kids that got measles had actually been vaccinated? And they were just like, oh, it turns out kids that have been vaccinated can still get the disease. And just turned that particular interesting fact. They've just turned it absolutely upside down. Is like, well, that just proves it really doesn't matter if you get it or you don't get it, right? What you should be looking at is
of course you can still get it.
Yeah,
It just
well,
way
they think
lessens your chances of getting it.
yeah, it's not a magical amulet, right? And this is, I mean, generally speaking, if you vaccinate a whole population, then even the kids who get the vaccine, for which the vaccine turns out not to be effective for them, they're still not going to get measles because they're not being exposed to measles.
Right.
But once you do get an outbreak, so now everyone is exposed to measles, then you can look at the vaccinated population and say how many of those got the disease anyway, and there'll be a thin sliver. And then you can look at the unvaccinated population and see that there's some significant percentage of those people end up getting the vaccine. And those two ratios are quite a bit different. So it's still easy to demonstrate the vaccine is effective. But I'd say it's not an amulet.
And on top of that, generally the people who have the vaccine will be able to fight it off better as well. So I always put it as a analogy. It's the biological equivalent of handing your immune system a wanted poster of said disease.
That's a great way of putting it. Because yeah, there is some evidence of that, and that's more of a phenomenon in the post-vaccination years. So you get vaccinated, and if you don't get an exposure for 5 years or 6 years or just some number of years later, your body will not have retained the ability to fight off the disease in the early stage. But the response is a lot quicker, and the recovery is a lot quicker and more complete. So it's
presumably for the anti-vaxxers, 99% coverage or protection is not good enough. You have to have 100% before they think it's even worthwhile considering.
Well, I'm sure they could. You know what they're like. People with that kind of a mindset, they could even turn that around. But yeah, it's that typical black and white thinking. That I mean, this show quite often. I mean, people, the Christians complain or the evangelicals complain that this is all about taking down God, and it's not. It's about rational thinking. It's about fighting against that sort of irrationality in their thinking. And that's one example, is the black and white thinking, that as soon as somebody can point to the chink in the armor and say, no, vaccine isn't 100% effective, well, then therefore, what's the point? Who cares? It's all willy-nilly. Sorry.
Yeah, but when you turn that around on them and say, crushing up the seeds or whatever, and they don't get cancer, they don't seem to keep that same mindset on those homeopathic things.
Yeah. Well, my all-time favorite little bit of graffiti was a anti-vaxxer billboard some group had put up, basically, demanding evidence or proof that vaccines work. And apparently somebody had gone up there with a can of spray paint and just across the entire billboard spray painted "Got polio."
Yeah, I'd seen that.
I thought that was brilliant.
You know what? I mean, I'm generally opposed to graffiti, but I tell you, that's the battlefield. I mean, people got to start doing stuff like that. That when the message is out there and it's some misinforming type of a message, then we got to be back with a 2-word punchy response to it, and keep this conversation in the public mindset. I want to go back to the point about well, do you trust your government? Should you trust your government? And I want to be clear. I'm not saying that I think that people in the UK shouldn't trust their government. I'm saying you should, as we all should, ask the question about whether or not your government is keeping you properly informed about the state of diseases in your country. Now, I'm not saying that your country or my country is lying. I'm saying this is a cultural thing. Who is it? Someone in here had said, well, we trust our government.
I think it's probably me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, honestly, somebody's got to soundbite that and just be like, oh, here's a guy with one of those fancy accents that says, oh, we trust our government. Look how dumb those people are. Because what do you mean do you believe 100% everything that your government tells you?
Obviously not, but something about the NHS.
Well, not obviously, because some people, if you had Arcane in the room, would you have said that, what you just said? Like,
I think the way in which I approach it is that I understand that the government is made up of politicians. Politicians obviously want to gain that position. They want to be re-elected. They will say whatever they think they have to say to the public. They will also, because they probably have aspirations to high office, will also toe the party line. So obviously there is some degree of suspicion and lack of trust that I have.
And you can't discount bad information either, though, right? Like maybe they have bad information.
I'll tell you what. There are a couple of members of Parliament. One now no longer a member of Parliament, but another one that is not only a member of Parliament but also a minister. That actually came from the same set of barristers' chambers that I used to work in, and the one who is no longer, and he did hold high office. He was the Secretary of State for Defence. I
Isn't Jeff
met
Booth,
it. Yes, it is.
Right.
Yeah. And
He's a twonk.
he's what?
A twonk. I mean, he seemed to be basically an honest chap, but he did seem to be a bit incompetent. He was overly impressed with the Americans. He's just trying to suck up to the American Defense Secretary, and he did seem to be basically a bit limp, and he didn't fight Tony Blair properly over the WMDs and things.
Yeah, well, there are many other criticisms that I'd make. There is actually also, as I say, not a Secretary of State, but a minister who came from my chambers as well, and she was, in my opinion, and it's my opinion, and other people may have other views. So if anyone's going to get sued, it's going to be me. She was a fairly incompetent barrister, but seems to be very good at towing the party line and saying the sorts of things that one would expect her to say. So
she's a minister now.
She's a minister now, yes. So
you're giving me a clue.
What? Well, I'll give you a name if you want.
Okay, do that. Yeah, do that. Yeah.
Anna Soubry.
Oh God, stupid cow. Oh, she annoys the pants off me, that woman. She's just a shouty woman who needs a good kicking. Yes. Oh dear.
Those were your words, not mine. But yeah, you know, I'm and because I have this sort of like connection, and I'm not saying I'm individual in this regard or exceptional in this regard, but I know what it takes to be a politician, and it isn't that much. And therefore, because of my experience with these two people individually, I do have serious question marks that I hold up against my government and
right. You're a bit of a
what it does. Yeah. But on the whole, please let me finish. On the whole, I think that there are sufficient measures in place to, on the whole, be confident that they cannot behave too much out of order without them being caught out. Now, what's interesting, of course, is the recent leaks from Panama that have deeply embarrassed our Prime Minister, and what long-term effects that has, I don't know. So yeah, there is a trust to a degree, but always holding a question mark over them. Now, what I see is totally different when I talk to Americans over their confidence, for example, in relation to things like gun control and medical assistance, and also the monitoring of emails and intelligence in general, is that if I was to say that I had 8 out of 10 confidence in my government, the average American, I suspect, would say that they had 1 or 2 out of 10 confidence or trust in their government, and that's the difference.
I was going to do a presentation. I was going to do a presentation. I was going to do a presentation, actually, a collection of things. So I don't know. PM'd you earlier in the week about trying to defend my assertion last time about for which I got a little bit of stick on messages about the fact that the intelligence agencies did say that WMDs existed in the Iraq War, and in fact even the head of the American CIA, George Tenet, said 90% slam dunk that Saddam had WMDs, and also there was a commission report by a judge on a bipartisan commission who actually established that it was actually intelligence people were telling the Americans, telling the somewhat contrary to what Ozzy said last 2 weeks ago, that it was feeding the Americans, the president, information that they did have WMDs, and I say the head of the CIA actually said it's a slam dunk, 90%. And the commission that actually investigated intelligence said indeed it was providing that information. And in the UK we had a similar thing, as I mentioned. One of our intelligence chappies was saying much the same thing here, and both agencies sort of swapped information, agreed about it, and they did, unfortunately. But they also did share an agenda to get Iraq as well as Afghanistan. But I back up what you were saying about DPR. Individuals in this country, particularly, individuals are very much constrained by protocol, civil service. They're under a great deal of scrutiny in Parliament. I mean, the executive and something like the president you've got in America is almost absolved from constant scrutiny, except by the press. I think this is why the press is so significant in America. Whereas in this country, we've got our prime minister has to get up every week, defend what he's doing. He gets a mouthful from the opposition leader, and he's under constant scrutiny from his MPs, and he's always working on the conditional support of MPs in Parliament, which doesn't exist in America. So there's a lot more scrutiny.
The White House press secretary and the president, I mean, they can run their press conferences like a Nephilim free hangout.
I mean, Barack Obama was saying,
in the UK or Canada.
That's a perfect analog.
Barack Obama was saying that he couldn't take the scrutiny that he was that the British Prime Minister underwent, and of course Bush, I think, when faced with similar sorts of attacks, was never subjected to similar sorts of scrutiny and attacks that the British Prime Minister gets. And also, I think this is the reason why American congressmen are so appalling, because they're not part of government. They've just got they're not part of the executive, so to speak. Whereas in this country, our Prime Minister is effectively like the leader of the House a leader of the House of Representatives in America, and therefore they actually participate in government inside our Parliament, whereas whereas that doesn't seem to happen in America. You've just got legislative elements, and they're not part of the government, which means they don't have any interest in the government working, and therefore you've got people like Ted Cruz running around sabotaging it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, as you mentioned, the idea of like if Obama had to be confronted every week by the leaders of the opposition, the Republican leaders, I'm already kind of inwardly facepalming at the stupid fucking questions that they'd be asking right now. I would not be surprised to see one of them start asking questions about chemtrails.
You guys. That's part of the process, though. I mean, the stupid questions, because the thing is, a set of stupid questions embarrasses your own party. I wish we could send to Ryan for his sort of edification about the other countries of the world. We have a thing called a question period. I think you guys call it question time.
Yeah.
Question time, yeah. And it is, for the most part, the speaker sitting back and saying, how's about you guys just shout at each other and bang on your desks for the next hour?
Yeah.
And when Americans first see this, they just go like what is, because this is a room full of children. But when you get the flavor, it's like watching curling as a sport. You just, at first it's just like, what is going on here? But then you get the logic of it, and when they're given that free,
some of the logic of it in relation to our Prime Minister's question time is that certain questions are. There's obviously an exchange between the leader of the opposition and the Prime Minister, but then you get questions that are simply posed questions from his own supporters, like, Prime Minister, would you not agree that your policy about this is working absolutely wonderful and blah blah blah, and if you watch this, you just know. And it's not even a fact of it is a fact that these are posed questions, and
they're planted, yeah.
It just makes the whole experience somewhat shabby, I think.
Yeah.
So I still would maintain my position, which is that, well, I'll give a score. Well, I have done already, and just out of interest, I would like to know what scores. And if you're commentating in the chat, please tell me which country you're in. I would have confidence in my government 8 out of 10. Rumpus.
And the institutions of government. Yeah, I'd agree with that, because there's not just the people, but the institutions of government are very strong in this country. So, for instance, things like the NHS has a policy, and a lot of government institutions that the Prime Minister, for instance, doesn't have complete control over, and has to sort of can bully around, but fundamentally they can make their noises felt. So there is a lot of confidence you can have in the national institutions in this country. And so I'd go about 8 of 10. Yeah,
okay.
I think that's
okay.
We're
drawing,
this is also for the live chat.
We're drawing towards the end of the show, so I must invite people to be somewhat brief. Norway. Well, you say you're from Norway, but you haven't given a scale out of 10. Sorry, I'm addressing
Vape Vines to Scotland.
In the chat. Hogtie, how much confidence would you have on a scale of 0 to 10 in your government?
9.5 out of 10. 9.5 out of 10.
Really? Okay.
We have systems in place. Yeah.
Norway is 9 out of 10. 4 out of 10. Sorry, it's moving too quickly for me. Something 80, 4 out of 10. Which country though? Which country are you talking about?
You need to say which country is.
I don't know.
Some people are putting in their country and not a score, and some people are putting in a score and not a country.
Exactly.
Is it unclear?
I did ask. I'm with Hogtie, and I presume you're from Canada.
Well,
okay.
No, maybe he's from some other country, but he trusts the Canadian government 9.5 out of 10. I don't know which government do you trust.
He's American. It could be he's American and he trusts the Canadian government.
We've got two Americans here. I think we've got 2 Americans here. Ryan.
Yep.
Score.
I'd probably go about 5 out of 10. It's
okay.
There have been studies that kind of suggest the U.S. has actually become more of an oligarchy than a democracy. But at the same time, I can't deny that America occasionally makes some right decisions, does some good stuff once in a while still. The courts are getting messed up, but they're still somewhat integritist. So
there's a classic quote from Churchill which said, "The Americans will come to the eventual decision after they've exhausted every other possibility."
Xbox, are you still with us?
Yep.
What would and again, I think you're American.
What
would you how would you score trust in your government?
Trust in the government, I don't know, 7 out of 10 in the US.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
7, 8.
I'm just we've got someone else that's saying Washington state government. I'm not sure whether that is
that's a state, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
still smiling skeptic.
If they're talking about DC, then it is. If they're talking about Washington DC, then it almost is treated as a separate zone.
Is it a state though?
Well, District of Columbia, is it? No,
Yeah,
it's not a state.
but
Is it a state? Okay.
But it's not part of
no,
any
no,
state.
no. You're right. I think it's counted as one of the 50 states, but it's
its own separate entity.
I think it can make separate laws that don't apply to the rest of the country.
Washington DC, District of Columbia. It's not a separate state.
It's not a state.
Yeah.
It's not. Right. Yeah. It is not considered one of the 50 states.
The founding fathers wanted it outside the states because the capital could try and get extra money sent that way if the capital was in a specific state. So they try to put it in neutral territory.
In the states, don't trust the state. They're the capital.
Vape Vines has put. I don't know whether this means minus 10 out of 10, but I don't know where Vape Vines comes from. So
I think you said Scotland before. No, Vape Vines actually had made a comment. Just speaking of measles, Vape Vines had made reference to an outbreak we had in Quebec of measles, and that's a wicked story. And I thought, well, he must, because he knows this story, must be Canadian, because I think the rest of the world doesn't know what happened in Quebec. I'm assuming you guys never heard about this.
No,
it was bad. Canadians, we've lost.
No, Hogtie, I'll
said Scotland. No, it's Scotland.
I'll allow you to finish, but we've overrun the 2-hour mark. So I do want to bring things to a conclusion fairly soon. So Hogtie, do please complete your point, and then I've got a couple more quiz questions just to finish the show with, and we'll take
tell you
it from
what,
there.
let me pull the old switcheroo here. I mentioned I had 3 court cases to talk about. How about if I only mention one, and I'll do it as sort of closing comments to this one?
Okay.
And that would be, the trust your government thing. Do I want to say anything about the trust your government thing? I think one of the problems we're facing for the Americans is they don't trust their government, regardless of whatever any objective assessment of trustworthiness. It's becoming really popular in the United States, just a cultural thing. Don't trust your government. And unfortunately, it bleeds over to things like, well, how do you know the CDC's lying to you about the moon landing, or who shot JFK, or whatever it is? It's the government, they're lying to you. Okay, so I want to do one case. Let me just try to find the link I had open to it here. This is a case from Boston. It was a woman declares herself as of the Muslim faith. Where the heck did her name go here? Her last name is like Robinson or something. It wouldn't. Yeah, Robinson. So she's a nurse at a children's hospital, and the first year she was there, which I think was in 2011 or 2010, she didn't want to get some vaccination. Was it MMR? And they were like, well, you kind of have to, like, this is what we do. And then she said, well, I can't because the vaccine contains pork products. And they went, oh, okay, she's Muslim, pork products, we get that. So she was excused from that vaccination. She did, however, receive a tetanus shot. Then the next year, they tightened the policy and they said, no, that because these are vulnerable sick children, all the staff have to get these shots. So they told her, yes, you have to get it. She said, well, I can't because of my religious beliefs. I can't have these pork products. The hospital said, fair point, let us make some calls. They end up acquiring the same vaccine that was not prepared in the same sort of gelatinous solution they make it that involves pork products. So it was actually, one might call it a proper halal flu shot. So I said, okay, we went through this extra work to accommodate your request to have this thing. And then she goes, no, actually, I'm not going to take it because now I'm of the opinion that the whole doctrines of Islam prohibits vaccination at all. So I'm not ever doing vaccines again. So now it wasn't the pork products. Now it is the supernatural bullshit explanation. Now it's my interpretation of this very popular worldwide faith. My personal interpretation, my strongly held religious belief is that Allah would be offended if I took this vaccine. Therefore, you, Mr. Employer, cannot force me to take the vaccine, even though it's a condition of my employment to work around vulnerable sick children. So they offered her a different position, or gave her an opportunity to search through the hospital for a different position, like in records or whatever else, and she apparently didn't really rise to meet that challenge. So they had to let her go because they couldn't let her work with sick kids anymore. She's turned around and sued in the U.S. District Court in Boston. So that'd be a federal court case, claiming that this violates her freedom of conscious religious belief. And the district court has sent her skidding and said no. Now, here's my response to this. We can have this discussion about vaccine safety, about vaccine effectiveness, and anybody could come up with a whole bunch of different rational arguments and say, well, you know what, it is true, and this is true. There are risks associated with taking vaccines. Well, I shouldn't have to take this vaccine because I don't want to take those risks. I should be able to weigh risks versus effectiveness. They're not completely safe. They're not completely effective. I should be able to make that decision. And if a person were to make a logical, rational argument based on an assessment of risks and effectiveness, they would have been thrown out of court on the first day, right? Because it was a condition of employment. It's a contractual obligation. You're going to do it or you're not going to do it. But the first person to stand up and say, it is my sincerely held religious belief, my personal interpretation of my people's religious bullshit that tells me that I'm not supposed to get this shot. Well, then now we got to go to trial. And now we have to have a discussion about whether or not it's a terrible imposition, a terrible burden on this woman's religious freedoms to have her act in a fashion that is consistent with the hospital's policy to not kill children.
On that note, and given the time, I'm going to draw things to a conclusion. I hope that people have enjoyed the show more than Ryan has. Ryan seems to be falling asleep now. Oh no, he's not falling asleep.
Can I just give one update about the thing we were talking about 2 weeks ago about this Islamic shopkeeper who was killed? And we were talking about the fact that the chap who
you can indeed, yes.
Great.
And I know exactly what you're going to say.
Yes, because the Glasgow shopkeeper from the Ahmadiyadi sect, which says basically love everybody and don't hate anybody, and who sent this tweet about
sect of Islam.
Yes, it's an Islamic. I don't know what I said. An Ahmadiyadi sect of Islam, and who said love everybody, including the Christians, and he's made this tweet about loving a Christian country he was a member of, and he was in Glasgow, and then some last 2 weeks ago, we had the news that someone had been, the police had arrested someone who was potentially who they presumed was they were arrested someone who they thought was the person who murdered him, and Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
And they said in that 2 weeks ago they thought it was a religiously motivated murder, and now it turns out that he's actually very peculiarly he's actually declared to his lawyer to release a statement that he did murder this chap, and he did so because he claims not because of what the statement about this chap his pleasant tweets about the UK and this Christian country, but that he thought he was a prophet. Now this Ahmadiyadi sect apparently is regarded as sort of sacrilegious because the apparently Muhammad was the last prophet, and their sect believes that there was another prophet afterwards or something. Anyway, so the point is this guy has actually admitted to it through his lawyer, which is absolutely incredible. No one has ever actually admits to these things through the lawyer, but the lawyer made the statement that he has actually admitted to doing this murder and stabbing this guy because he thought that lots more people would die unless he was to kill this chap. So
I agree with you. I thought it was absolutely extraordinary that this statement was made, and I didn't understand how it was made, but you're absolutely right. When I looked into it, it was because he had given instructions to his lawyer to make this statement public. But it's the most extraordinary thing. So basically, he's admitted to the killing and admitted that it was
religiously motivated.
Exactly. Very, very, very extraordinary.
Anyway, he was somewhat reluctant. Yeah.
Anyway, one last question for you and the audience. Quick answers, please. How many images are uploaded to social networks every day? Figures, please.
100 million.
100 million. Okay. Anyone else?
100 million and one.
Okay.
I'm putting in the billion.
No. Yeah, 100. Sorry. Yeah, 100. Damn it. Sorry, 10 billion.
The billion. Yeah.
10 billion. Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Ryan?
10 to the 10th. Yeah.
You can, if you want, go 10 billion minus 1.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go for 3.4 billion.
3.4 billion. And
yeah, we should have to do this on a lot.
I'll go 12. I'll go 12 billion. I'll go a little higher.
Then it should be closest on a logarithmic scale if you guys are going to sandwich me like that.
Oh no.
12 billion
I'm giving the points to Ryan. Apparently it is 1.8 billion.
Oh, so it's 10 high.
And,
well,
okay. Again, supplementary question: how many of those are selfies?
Oh, jeez.
99.9% of them.
75%.
Give me the answer in millions.
800 million.
800 million?
Sorry.
$1.
It's 1.8 billion. 150 million. It's not that many.
What was yours, Xbox?
I was joking. I did the Price is Right $1 thing. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we've got 150 million from Hogtiechamp.
I went for 800 million.
800 million. Ryan?
I'll say 300. So above.
Well, I don't know who's got it right. Someone says 10%. Well, again, I don't know which definition of billion is being made, but it's estimated that there are around 100 million selfies. And there was one last
that would be
question.
10%.
There was one last
So that is
question I
150.
wanted to ask you.
Yeah, I think Hogtie was right there.
By the way,
Okay.
I feel like we should point out that half of those selfies are not posted by Donald Trump.
There was one last question. Oh yes, obesity.
What's the question?
No, he's just looking at me and saying the first word that comes to mind.
The statement.
How
no,
many
no,
of those
no,
selfies
no.
are of obese people?
About 1 in 10 men and 1 in 7 women are obese. I'm not going to give you the source for this because I don't want to waste time. On average, people are now X kilograms heavier than they were in 1975. What is the value of X in kilograms? So basically, on average, people are now X number of kilograms heavier than they were in 1975. What is the value of X?
20 kilograms.
20?
I'm going with 11.
11? Ryan?
I pass.
He doesn't. Xbox can't do metric.
That's true. That's why I pass.
Just
Y'all
multiply by
need-
2, but half whatever you think it is in pounds.
Yes.
y'all need to do American.
Yeah, 11 kilograms. What is that about? It's about a stone, Xbox. So work in stones.
I had to work in stones.
They don't have stones in the US.
I'll tell you what, Xbox, rather than thinking about it, just pick a number out of your ass.
12.
12. Okay, so we've got
Oh,
Hogtie on
15.
11.
I'm
Oh,
looking-
wait. I don't want to do hogtie like that again. I'll do 22.
22. Okay. Ryan, are you still passing on this one?
I'm gonna go with 15 kilograms.
Okay, I think Hogtie wins then because it's actually 6. I think Hogtie was
Not as big as people think, yeah.
the closest there. Anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you all, and also watching on YouTube. It's not as bad as I thought it was. The delay isn't as bad as I thought, but hopefully in 2 weeks' time when we join you again, I will get Vaughan working again. I do prefer Vaughan, but anyway, we'll run it on both. I also want to make an apology to those that are supporting us on Patreon. We do have a Patreon account, and I was going to list off the people who have and are donating through Patreon. All funds that we receive through that account do go directly to the charity MSF Doctors Without Borders. We don't take any of the money ourselves. Unfortunately, I didn't do it because just as I was about to start setting the program up and setting XSplit up, I realized that we weren't able to, it was appearing as if we weren't able to broadcast on Vaughan, and I was messing around with all the technicalities about that. So I apologize. On next week's, the next show, I will read out the kind people who have and are donating money through Patreon. Any relevant links that people want me to put into the description, please let me know. But apart from anyone who wants to make any final comments, words, observations, we'll end the show there. Anyone want to say anything?
Yeah, it turns out that they're have already started meeting for this anti-vax thing. It's called Debunking Kent Hovind's Anti-Vax Video. It's on Fiona Robertson's channel. I unfortunately cannot post, so I have a watch link for it on YouTube, but I cannot post to the what do you call it? The live chat.
Do you want to write
share
out
it with you.
write out in the description, in the comments, the title of it so people can go and find it?
Sorry about that. In the yes, I'll do so. So I'll put it there. Also, I did find the Kurz. Remember, I said that Kurz Gazette changed their channel name because everybody, probably including me, mispronounces it. What you want to look for is In a Nutshell, and you want to look for the words Measles Explained. And again, we'll post links to that as well. But just in case people are oh, Fiona's. Wait a minute. Oh, I got the wrong. Sorry. But yeah, so we'll post the link. Sorry, how did you want this link for Fiona's Hangout? I just sent it to you on Skype, but where else could I put it?
You sent me something on Skype, but it just comes up as a blank.
Oh, I can type. Wait a minute. I just see somebody can do that as long as I take out.
Type in the chat.
I just take out
the description of sorry, into the YouTube feed.
Live chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the live chat thing there, yeah.
Just type out the title of it, and then I'm sure people will be able to find it if they do a search.
Well, I just put in the video identifier.
Oh yeah, there's a video there. Sorry.
But by the way, I think Kent Hovind is selling those pills, the vitamin B whatever, that are actually the ground up apricot seeds.
Yeah, not vitamins, and it's his son that sells it. He doesn't.
No, they try and sell it as vitamin whatever, but I could be wrong, but I believe sale of those in the United States is supposed to be illegal.
I'm sure when I first came on YouTube, I watched a video by Hovind that talked about some sort of seed, and someone made a rebuttal video. It may have been Thunderfoot that basically said that these seeds were incredibly poisonous and incredibly dangerous to eat.
Sure. Yeah. But okay, just real quick, just to touch on that. I appreciate you trying to wrap up the show, but as people will sort of briefly say, well, something's illegal. Look, it's legal to sell rat poison and nerve toxin in the United States. You just got to label it rat poison or nerve toxin.
Right.
Okay.
Where people are getting into trouble with the vitamin B, whatever they call it, and it's not a vitamin, but whatever, is packaging. It's a presentation of what this product might be used for. If you sell it as a health product, you've got issues with what's the regulatory board? FDA.
FDA.
If you sell it as or make any promise that it's going to create some other benefit other than a medicinal benefit, then you've got FTC issues. Yeah. If you sell it with these things during a late night infomercial broadcast, you've got FCC. There's always some bureaucratic body in the United States that has something to say about a product you sell. So yes, it contains cyanide, but that's not the point.
Unfortunately, the same sort of criteria do not apply to claims made by psychics and religious nutcases like Popoff and whatever.
Yeah.
But that's a topic for another show. Can I thank you all very much indeed? I am going to
Yeah,
end it
can I
now.
briefly say something, GPR?
Yeah, as long as it's brief.
It's just to do with that. I'm not sure. I think I was muted when I was saying it. I put the link on that Hovind and Fiona video on my profile page as well if people lose it. So it's there too.
Do you want to bung it into the YouTube comments?
Slideshow.
Yes, I will.
That's great. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We will catch up with you, as I say, in 2 weeks' time. And I apologise for the delay in the start of the show and the fact that we didn't get it to you on Vaughan. Hopefully, I'm not saying that I'll be able to do it, but hopefully somebody will be able to help me resolve what the issue was. But we'll see you hopefully in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much.